is almost a rebalance to that. It's like, let's come back into alignment that allows our nervous system to actually relax and let go. And we can sink into these postures without holding any tension and tightness. There's value to the extreme ranges and really sort of pushing and having control in these ranges, but these floor resting really allow a reset back into our design. I call it a retune, and I've coined that from Philip Beach. Any of you guys trainers into movement out there, Philip Beach wrote a book called Muscles and Meridians. Like, write that down, check it out. And he's got some amazing concepts around movement. And a lot of what I get is from him. A lot of my understanding of the floor resting postures. Yeah, excited about this round 2. We'll see how many of the guys, maybe you guys can pop in the chat, how many saw part 1. And based on that, if very few guys here saw part 1, I can go through and just do a recap of that. You can even pick up the old slides and go through them in 5 minutes. I haven't. Right.
Davi knows the floor well. He's a black belt BJJ Brazilian who's got a studio in Perth, Australia. So definitely intimately connected with the floor. I think Anthony's got the martial arts background as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Love it. Yeah. There's some amazing benefits, and those guys are really something they're comfortable in. It allows a lot of them to stay injury free. I mean, it's inevitable that you're going to get hurt, but yeah.
Yeah, do you want to touch on the sleeping on the floor before we jump in?
Yeah, sleeping on the floor is interesting.
Sleeping on the floor over a year though.
Yeah,
different.
Yeah. Do you want me to touch on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The floor, sleeping on the floor is interesting. I mean, what do they say? There's a saying: soft body, hard beds. Hard body needs a soft bed, right? So as you get old, if you're stiff and rigid, you'll be more comfortable in a soft bed. But if you're loose and relaxed, and your body is your nervous system is letting you sort of sink into your body's design, you'll sleep on the floor very comfortably. Now, a lot of us hold a lot of tension and tightness through our training and you're more comfortable in a soft bed. But that sleeping on the floor forces you mold into the floor, and your body completely relaxes, and your nervous system makes you let go to be comfortable on the floor. And sleeping on your left side, because of the groove in your lung for your heart to sit on, there's a groove in your left lung and no groove in your right lung. So if you sleep on your right, the weight of your heart is pressuring onto your lung. So you'll be slightly less comfortable in your breath. Now, sleeping on your left side in a fetal position is a lot more comfortable. A lot of people sleep on their back and their side, but I think a fetal position is most comfortable. I don't know, I can't find this video again, but they did this test with kids, and it was a preschool, everyone was on the floor, and it was just like, okay guys, roll onto your side and go to sleep. 9 out of 10 kids, I think there was like 20 kids in the room, 9 out of 10 went onto their left. That's where they were most comfortable. So, this comfort on the left, I'd be intrigued to see how guys are comfortable. But yeah, a lot of guys sleep on the back. If you're sleeping on the back and your toes turn way out throughout the night, your outer hamstrings, biceps femoris, the external rotators of your hip, they have all shortened and are sitting in those shortened positions throughout the night. Now your adductors, that sartorius, everything that lets your tibia rotate out to the side, so your lower leg turn out, your knee externally rotate. Those have over-lengthened throughout the night. Now you get up from that position, you're much more likely to be compressed, thrust forward into the front, heel striking. So it guides your movement, the way you sleep. And these floor resting postures are the same. We'll go through them. and they put you in a tune not just to be, you know, mobile, to be flexible, to be in alignment, but they guide your movement patterns going forward. And the reason we have so much niggles, aches, pains, injury, wear and tear, even for us guys who are training hard, we're guys putting effort into our training, we've still got the injury, the wear and tear, the breakdown. And those are the extremes. You know, you see the way bodybuilders are falling apart, and it's not being publicized. Like Keegan, this will be interesting, but the CrossFitters getting, you know, the ex-pros later in their careers, we're now seeing more and more hip replacements, knee replacements, surgeries, wear and tear. So it's just like, what are these guys missing? They're doing all the mobility, all the training, eating right, sleeping well, all the mobility, but they're still out of alignment, still got the wear and tear and the injury showing up. So yeah, I think there's a big low-hanging fruit that we're talking about here. These floor resting postures have such a rebalancing act for the body.
Yeah. Have you got into the, what's your take on the Kaderziani? You know, it's not exactly floor resting postures, but it's sort of related. And, you know, he got himself back to barefoot dunking after 40, after a complete Achilles rupture.
Yeah. Yeah. He's amazing. You can see like he's realigned himself with the ground. He's quite aggressive in like his approach to it. He really sort of moves over the joints, and he puts his body in a position to use the entire fascial system, right? Like he rebounds, bounce. He doesn't have that crazy force production. He doesn't have the big, huge quads. He basically can utilize that entire fascial system. He's an entire organism. The way you see him move, everything is connected. When his left foot hits the ground, his head's over there, his shoulders flow and move with everything. He's really loose and animalistic. He doesn't have that compression and tension that he's holding. And I think he had that even before his injuries. Of course, he was already a big, dunker, and he had that throughout. He was just moving. He kept in alignment with it. Now it's helped him heal as well. So yeah, there's cool benefits to it.
Yeah,
Kaderzian is.
He's just a nice guy as well. I had a couple of chats with him like a few years back, but he was one of the most athletic men in the world, in his 20s, and just poetry in motion to see. I haven't listened to why he thinks he snapped the Achilles, but to get back to barefoot dunking after 40 is pretty extreme.
Yeah, that Achilles is interesting, and we're seeing a lot more Achilles tears. Like in the NFL, it's like a record number of ACL tears and Achilles tears happening. Yeah. And essentially, the way that Achilles coils, the Achilles tendon is in this like spiral coiling. So if you think of a rope, I wish I've got a rope somewhere. Well, this is a rope, but it's not the coiled rope. But if you think of the fibers of the Achilles wound tight like this, sort of around each other, if they're in their correct alignment and your Achilles is straight, it's nice and strong. Now, if you collapse onto the inside of your foot and you drive through the heel, right, it unravels and it turns. So now it's like it doesn't have its tension. So if you want to tear something, right, you want to tear a piece of paper, right, when you pull something straight, it's unbreakable. But you turn something to the side, it's like, oh, you tear it really easy. Like a piece of paper is just, the perfect example. I was trying to demo that there on the top of my camera. But you pull something straight and we're all good. But same with the ACL, that, tibia and lower leg rotating out and the femur rotating in, that's how the ACL tears every single time there's an ACL tear. And the Achilles happening now, it's the same. Now, this realignment to the floor, it's encouraging the positions that put all your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, all your connective tissue in a certain alignment. And when we're in alignment, we're bulletproof. Not only that, we have this relaxed freedom, right? Like our sense organs, our hands, our feet, our eyes, nose, mouth, That's what we're supposed to be aware of as we move. And true athletes like Couture, like Michael Jordan, like Tom Brady, they're not overly connected to their body. They don't do training where they're sort of like creating a mind muscle connection. They play their sport. There's a lot of athletes who are they're just playing their sport, and they're bulletproof because they are, well, they're very athletic because they can just focus on what's going on around them. As a child, when you first started crawling, walking, exploring the world around you, you weren't really like, oh, man, like my pec, you couldn't feel where your traps were. It was just like, okay, where are my hands, where are my feet, and what do I want to do? It's just like, let's move and go. And athletes and sportsmen have that. And you see good boxers, and they can just relax and let go. And then those that start bodybuilding, like Anthony Joshua is a good example. It's just like as they pick up the muscle mass, start training, get connected, their nervous system's energy essentially is wasted in their musculature. They have so much awareness of where their body is. Like you see a bodybuilder walk around, they're connected to their body. Now that takes away from your hands your actual true awareness of where you are in space. And now you're less athletic. Your heels striking the ground. The floor, the feet, and being in shoes are just a prime example. They call shoes a sensory deprivation chamber, especially shoes that distort your foot, right? That's now taking away how you feel the ground and how you manipulate with your hips and your shoulders to absorb the force of the ground if you're jumping, landing, running. So coming back and disconnecting from this tension we hold in our body is just key. And Couture was, he's doing that. Yeah. Awesome. So Keegan, with the last time I went through it, the slides were a big part of it, but you mentioned a Q&A, and just a conversation between us will probably open up the right doors anyway. So where do you want me to take it? Do you want me to summarize the previous slides and just go through and then open up a conversation after that, or should we just keep going?
Yeah, for guys who are tuned in, welcome to ask questions, share ideas. It is, there's no doubt that there's issues with alignment with the way we live now, and what degree that's caused in the weight room, to what degree that's caused through long commutes to and from work, and sitting in chairs for school for a long period of time, and athletes being gamers. And there's so many factors potentially in why we're becoming more injured. And you understand the alignment stuff more, but then as someone else who's potentially like a nutrition expert who would point out the changes in gut health and the changes in hormone levels and the changes in glycine intake and use of traditional foods and these kinds of ideas as well. Like, it's hard to be sure. To me, it's likely that there's many causal factors, even sleep quality. Like, we tend to go to bed significantly later. We're out of circadian rhythm. If you listen to Dr. Jack Cruz, like, he's going to say that 100% that's why athletes are getting more injured, because the light cycle's changed. And if you listen to someone who's really into the diet stuff and ancestral food and glycine and slow cooked and that the collagen intake and stuff, they'll say, well, yeah, we don't have that connective tissue in the bloodstream anymore because of these changes. Like, do you see it as multifactorial, or do you should we how do we know to what degree what is or influencing it, or what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, first off, yeah, I totally agree that the big problem is the inactivity, this loss of shape and posture. There are negative inputs that I believe happen in training, but that same negative input is happening sitting on a bus, right? Getting compressed through the front side of the body. Now, someone going to the gym and always training abdominals, chest, biceps. That same spinal remodeling is happening, where we're getting that typically rounding of the upper back, flattening of the lower back, where that spine is actually designed to be almost in a J-shaped curve. You see indigenous tribes people left sort of untouched, that they've got this certain shape of their spine. So, that's the main issue is what the modern world is doing. It's not just the training. Guys who are in the training are just finding the problem sooner because they're adding intensity to it. So we're all suffering like in our late 20s and early 30s. We got niggles, aches, pains, injuries showing up because we hit the intensity. Like our parents and our grandparents or our parents or sisters maybe don't train at the intensity that we do. They'll find the same problems at 60, 70, and 80. So us just adding the intensity, I mean, across the board, we've all got the same postural issues and problems. We're not honoring the natural design of the body. There's so many different factors, that we can go and dive into. And I love diving into them, like nutrition, lifestyle, biomechanics. What I've decided to do, we can take this conversation in a different direction. I've decided to do that, like research and stuff for myself. But my purpose has to be looking at the effect of this, movement side of things, because it's definitely when we look at the injuries, it's definitely a movement pattern problem. When I see slow down an injury and see how it happened, the reason I talk about the injuries and on-field injuries is they're just so drastic. It's like, wow, you can see it happen right there. It might take 10 years for that same movement problem, like toes out, heels down, poor, like someone walking in a waddle. That'll take a decade or two to wear through the kneecap. But that same movement problem collapsed, tore an ACL on the field. And that's like, oh, wow, okay, right there it is. And it's definitely postural and movement problems that are leading to the increase in this, the increase in the susceptibility of injury. I truly believe that, because we're seeing the movement patterns just deteriorate. More and more people, less connected to the ground, less time spent just enjoying and playing their sport, more time spent in the gym, more time spent in the classroom, more time spent sedentary, inputting more poor postural movement problems has led to a serious increase in this rate of injury and wear and tear. So, I do believe that there's a factor, but it could be multifactorial as well, for sure. There's a margin where, more collagen throughout my life or better nutrition could have meant that wasn't completely ruptured, that was just partially torn or strained or something like that. So yeah, so many factors to dive into, but what I'm deciding to do for the sake of keeping myself sane and for the sake of giving something really powerful to the fitness industry is stay in this lane, in a major way. Even though I just love the bio, this could go into biohacking. Let's talk about nutrition.
Alex is saying a quick summary from the first part would be really good. He spent a lot of time in a chair as well.
Love it. I'll jump into that. All right. So yeah, I'm glad you guys mentioned that. The first one, was great. It was awesome to take us through these slides. I'll run through them a lot quicker than last time. So, if anyone does, miss anything or, just reach out to me afterwards and, we can talk what's going on. But basically so many people have lost their alignment, shape, posture, and for young, old athletes, everyone seems to be suffering, right? So for our athletes, for ourselves, it's just like, I really believe getting back to the floor is key, because we're all compressed, poor posture, poor alignment, and the chairs have become a big part of that, right? Like, we're an old species, we've been around, let's say as Homo sapiens, 400,000 years or whatever it is. And then chairs are a new invention. Before that, we were resting on the ground, and the floor reshapes us. It puts us back into our correct alignment. So we have Seiza, toe tuck kneeling pose, paleo squat, resting squat, tailor's pose, a long sit or an L sit, side saddle, cowboy, a half Caesar I haven't shown here, but these rebalance and realign us, right? And it is just, there's so much in each one of these poses, right? Like if you look at side saddle on the left, we've got this leg turned out to the side. We've got a nice lengthening of the outer quadriceps, the biceps femoris, a release of the peroneals and the outside of the lower leg on the left. We've got, of course, the quadriceps and the anterior tibialis, the front of the shin. Everything is just getting retuned and realigned. We don't have to name the muscles like I do. I almost only do it just to express that I know what I'm talking about. But these postures alone, just getting to them, you don't have to know. Just know that these are natural to us. We look on the right, those toes tucked underneath us. What releasing out that plantar fascia does for you. Now, the plantar fascia, which is all the fascia at the bottom of the foot, that wraps over the calcaneus or the heel and becomes the Achilles tendon as we go over the heel to the calf, the soleus and the gastrocnemius, right? We create this rebalancing and realignment naturally by just getting into these floor resting postures, right? Now, a big part of all these poses might not be all that obvious, that the hips are back and behind the rib cage, right? The hips are behind us. And if you look at, I actually just want you guys to focus on the logo on the right? You see my name underneath it by Brian Mitchell, that's a logo. I had a lady hand draw this for me. Shit, if anyone wants a logo, I'll pass on the details. But this was hand drawn for me. Now, the hips are supposed to be back and behind the rib cage, and that drives us forward, right? Like you look at anyone run forward efficiently, the hips are supposed to be back and behind us, right? And reconnecting with the ground helps you when you get back up and it's time for you to walk and run. You're doing that efficiently, and our hips are supposed to be back and behind us, but everyone is thrusting those hips forward in majority of what they're doing in the gym, right? And we'll come back to that. Now, the shoulders. I mean, there's nothing better than a single arm hang, a nice sort of release, grip strength, elbow turn back, shoulder in an internal rotation. Just the alignment that you get for the shoulder is unbeatable. I don't know if you guys saw that video of Alex Hormozi. He was like, I've got all the money in the world to spend on, physiotherapists, chiropractors, whatever. And he had a shoulder injury. And it was like the best thing that he could find out there was hanging from above, right? And Keegan, I know you're big into the calisthenics and the hangs and the single arm stuff. So, just again, this just goes to show that it's some of the most basic solutions, right? Now, the floor resting postures, they can be implemented throughout the day. There's so many ways to implement them, but if you can get to the point where you are working, sitting in these floor resting postures, like as I talk to you guys right now, I'm flowing, I'm sitting cross-legged, moving between different poses and postures, and throughout my workday, that will be happening, right? Now, the disconnection from the ground is leading to us walking unnaturally, right? Like we're already, we see other animals, they walk the same, adults and babies, they all have the same natural movement pattern. But because we go from crawling and then up to bipedal and walking, it's a lot more complex for us, right? So we lose these natural gait patterns, right? And you see a baby crawling, you see the toes in, the heels out, obviously the butt back, and the chest very open and upright. And now you look at, if you can just hone in and look at the logo again, it's the hips back and behind, it's the chest open and upright, a long open belly and chest, right? And you'll see good movers maintain the characteristics of crawling in their running, right? And they, again, I always relate it back to the floor because, Keegan, that's what's, important for us. And you see that as the main key thing here. And the floor is always it's helping us move better. So as we look at these natural gait patterns, when you reconnect with the ground, as a byproduct, we almost reinforce these positive gait movement characteristics. So gait meaning walking and running patterns. When we land straight forward, this is Michael Jordan here. He was an incredible mover, much like Kadur Ziani, very relaxed, no tension and tightness held in his body. right? The feet land straight and the ankle doesn't collapse in, right? Now the crawl, we can implement and practice with the crawl. We see the same characteristics show up. Now this is on the left. I don't think so, that's Ed Reed. I believe that's Bo Jackson. I must double check, but we have this absorbing of force into the lower body very efficiently, right? The knee doesn't shift in, doesn't collapse. That's where we see injuries. We have this sort of loading out. Again, it's fairly consistent with what we see, in a crawling baby. Now the spine and the hips, they're supposed to be back and behind us. You mentioned remember what I said earlier. Now look at these spines. It's all a relatively flat upper back, and then we've got a curvature at the lower back. For most people, we have the opposite, a flattening of the lower back, a rounding of the upper back, and poor development of the glutes. We are supposed to have big glutes that sit back and behind us. So if you're a muscular man, your glutes should be like half a football if you're in proportion, right? We're supposed to have big glutes that sit behind us because they drive us forwards. Big glutes and hamstrings. A lot of us have big chest, abs, and quads, not glutes and hamstrings, right? And a lot of that is just because of movement patterns. It's not because we're deadlifting or hip thrusting, or we're not deadlifting enough weight. It's because we're not in the right characteristics, and our gait patterns don't continuously have that input of drive forward with the glutes and hamstrings, right? And again, reconnecting with the floor can help us do that. This isn't really a sitting posture, but literally getting down on all fours, reconnecting with the ground has so much power to soften the front side of the body, and to harden and activate the glutes, hamstrings, the back, and all that fascia and connective tissue that is, in our thoracolumbar fascia and up the rest of the back that holds us open and upright. So the crawl is a huge one. Now the hips do an overhand motion. I'm not going to bother explaining this unless I can dive into a video, but basically our hips do an overhand motion, all right? And we see this in nature, right? The head aligns over the foot, right? Specifically the eye of the same side aligns over the outside of the foot. We see that in elite athletes, whether it's those who cut and turn or, straight line movers, long distance runners, those who are efficient, amazing. When it becomes lateral and cutting and turning, is a different story there, right? Kids, young babies, we see this. The toes are in, the heels are out. We look at that picture on the left, right? That's where we are protected and aligned, right? Now, Caesar should be done with your toes in and heels out, not toes out and heels in, right? So yeah, that's going to put us in the right alignment. So a lot of like yoga will go and take variations of these poses, but put you in a compromised position and sometimes not help you out at all. Indigenous tribes people, we see the similar patterns. Natural elite athletes, that's Tom Brady on the right, Michael Jordan on the left. Longevity cases, Dean Karnazes and I forget the lady on the right. Ida Keeling, 105, same flow characteristics, right? Dean Karnazes, he was known as the man who could run forever, and he just bounds and moves so well. Jeannie Rice, unnatural patterns, and it doesn't mean you're not a good performer. I just think it leads to wear and tear early on. Collapse of the ankle. Yes, pronation can be this absorbing of force, but excessive pronation, there's wear and tear and compromised positions then, no doubt, right? Loading through the knee and the quad. If we are dominant through the knee and the quad, I'm not saying don't have strong quads. I'm just saying relative to your glutes and hamstrings, they need to be able to take a back seat when it's time for efficient movement, right? When we load into the quad, that knee is compromised. Not always, but often when we're collapsed in and the lower leg is rotating out, right? We can load into the quad and keep good alignment with our upper and our lower leg, sure. Ben Patrick's a good example of that, right? Awesome. So this thrusting forwards of the hips, right, is very consistent with hip thrusts, back squats. So often what we see in training, we see show up in movement patterns if we don't have the rebalancing act of the floor. Now, those who are like strong men, powerlifters, if they don't reconnect with the floor, their body becomes their sport, right? Now, strong men, powerlifters, we see that the toes turn out, the heels go, their body completely restructures and reshapes to be better at lifting, right? Unnatural, one-arm ball sports is, the asymmetries there, front side of the body, swimmers, excessively tight lats. I was an ex-swimmer, water polo player. There's severe compensations that happen in the shoulders there. CrossFit, similar, poor gait mechanics, right? And the big one here is like what is leading to poor gait patterns. I truly believe a huge part of that is the disconnection from the floor as our maintenance system, right? The other topics are overemphasis of lifting, not enough forward movement inputs. So, guys are going to the gym and lifting instead of spending more time moving efficiently or being aware of how to create that. And then there's hyper specialization in sports, right? So there's certain tools that I have. The mobility and maintenance is getting back to the floor. When I train clients and athletes, it's with biomechanics based training. We prioritize moving forward, whether we're training in the lower body or the upper body. We're training with the intent of moving forwards, right? Severe compensations and injuries bring corrective exercise protocols into play. So I couldn't sit cross-legged. I couldn't sit in Seiza. I was very disconnected from the ground, and it led to severe injuries. So on the left, I just realized this. I'm wearing a skirt because it's a dress-up thing. Should we call it a leopard skin or whatever? But you look at the shape of that left leg. Very soon after this left leg had an ACL tear, right? So the susceptibility to injury is very clear in the posture, right? Now, straight feet, straight aligned legs, much, much better. And even after shoulder dislocation, back issues, ACL tear, I was able to last year do a half Ironman at 100 kilos plus. It was just, there's ways to get your body back into alignment, and a big one is these floor resting postures. Right. Again, that spinal, imbalance that I spoke about. Most people have an excessive rounding of the upper back, flattening of the lower back. We can reshape our body, and it reshapes the way you move. So what I really prioritized in this transition is reconnecting with the ground. All right. Love it, guys. I'm coming back to you guys. And we'll go from there, because that's just the recap. Done. All right. Awesome. Love it. So yeah, it's the floor, as you can see here. I'm in these floor resting postures. They're not something you can jump right into, right? You might not have access to them. You might need to move slow. Having a yoga block, a couple of yoga blocks stacked on top of each other, you slowly lower down, able to get into them. It will take some time. Now, a lot of us go into these mobility protocols and methods with intensity and intention, but you really just need to soften and relax, let your nervous system calm down so your body can settle into its innate design, right? So we're realizing that the answers with nutrition are behind us, what we used to do in the way we're designed to process food, what we've evolved to eat. Same thing with the floor resting postures and movement. Look at the way we are designed to sit, and we will find solutions there. We really are designed to sit and rest on the floor. There was a time where there were no chairs. Before chairs, what did we do? Of course, we sat and rested on the floor. We hung out here. You should be able to sit and read a book from the floor, or hang out with mates for a couple of hours. And we see it in some cultures around the world, the Japanese culture. I spent some time in the Middle East. I lived 2 years in the Middle East in a country called Oman. And whenever we'd hang out with the guys, It was down on the floor, meals are down on the floor, big mats are laid out while we're camping or whatever it is, a lot of time on the floor. And I was training and coaching in a CrossFit gym at the time. Very few injuries, very few guys needing knee sleeves, taping up their knees relative to elsewhere in the world, where in CrossFit gyms, it's all about getting on the foam rollers, mobility tools. There were much less aches, pains, and injuries. Now, that is to show that they had this input of CrossFit, all the lifting mechanics, but they had a way of balancing it out, reconnecting with the ground. So if you're a powerlifter, bodybuilder, CrossFitter, great, but know that you need to be so comfortable with the ground and have this input of continuously rebalancing and realigning your body if you're going to keep that up long term. Otherwise, the powerlifting, the Olympic weightlifting, or whatever your input is, even gymnastics, your body is going to become that. Just like I showed the sports players, they train with so intensity, they love their sport, they give everything to it, that their body becomes that. If you're a swimmer, your body becomes a swimmer, right? If you're a tennis player, your body becomes a tennis player. One forearm is just so much bigger than the other, unless you have this rebalancing and realignment act, right? So this rebalancing, this realignment, this reconnecting the ground, it's what we all need, whether it's your 60-year-old parent who has got back issues and a sore knee, you can help them reconnect with the ground. Or it's you as a youngster who wants to get back to playing rugby, or you want to start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but you have niggles and injuries that's holding you back, or you want to go on long hikes, whatever it is you want to do, whether it's sports or everyday life, or if, a lot of us here are young men, if you're aware enough that like, hey, I could be taking care of myself now for when I'm 60, 70, and 80, that's going to allow you to be down on the floor playing with your kids and relaxed and loose, dancing, playing, moving. Right.
There's a few implementation questions coming up there, Brian. Davi's asking about like the best approach. Do you just start using the floor, or do you have a specific sequence process that you recommend around this?
Right. Yeah. So first off is see where you're at. Like the test. I'll put out a little bit of a test through the platforms, and I'll talk to you about how we'll distribute it. But where are you at? I mean, some people are so relaxed and at ease that they can get down and sit on the floor, and it's comfortable, right? Now, if you can't, and you're compensating in any way, so for you to sit in Seiza, if you can't keep your hips behind you and you've got to tuck your pelvis, because what that does is it gives length to your quads, that's a compensation, right? Or if you have a side-to-side compensation, you've got to lean away from the one leg, you raise your hips up high enough so that you don't compensate, so that your hips stay behind you, right? Toes in, heels out, right? They don't have to be stacked, but here, that should be very comfortable. And hips on the heels is, of course, the standard. I wouldn't say even the final goal, that's the standard, right? Then toes tucked behind us, right, and able to stay on your heels as well. That's the other one, right? Now your toes are tucked behind you. You can put your hands on the ground in front of you and rock back. Can you sit in a squat while your heels are up, right? I see a lot of guys following on, so we'll keep flowing with it, right? And then from here, your feet are really narrow. This is a paleo squat. Can you widen your feet a little bit and then drop to your heels? This is that full deep resting squat. This is the one where you can be here all day. You can sit, light a fire, read a book, boom, just relax. A lot of guys won't be able to stay super upright. If you've got a long torso and short legs, you'll be very upright. I've got long legs, short torso. So for me, it's just, this is comfortable. I'm down here. I'm almost down with the ground. Right now from here, hips slowly to the ground, and you're in a tailor's pose. The soles of your feet together, right? And knees out. Yeah, sure, you can see if you can get your knees close to the ground. It's like that bound angle, but at least be comfortable here, right? Then, cross-legged, simple. Your hips should be able to stay nicely behind you. You shouldn't have to rock back like this with a flexed spine. stacked shins, right? These are a lot of the standards, right? But the raising your hips and going down slow is key, right? Now, what I would do is when you raise your hips, if you feel any tension and tightness, your nervous system has got to let go of that tension and tightness before you descend down. Don't try create length while you're still holding that tension. Now that's contrary to some of like a lot of guys in here know the ATG methods, huge value in a lot of them, right? But when we get into these floor resting postures, it is about relaxing your nervous system, actually becoming parasympathetic and allowing your body to retune and rebalance, right? Awesome. The other questions. Quick summary will be helpful. What do you think of the What do you think about your standing posture and how you use your body day to day, or is it a natural consequence of sitting in new ways? Right. So I really think the floor resting postures realign your standing posture. Right. When you get up from the floor, if you've been sitting in Seiza, and you're comfortably getting rebalanced and retuned here, right? Your quads are nice and long. How are you going to want to stand up, right? You're going to stand up, boom, into the glutes, right? Hips back and behind you, feet relatively narrow. So there is a rebalancing. A lot of other systems ask you to change your posture intentionally. And I don't think that long term that leads to compression, discomfort, pain, right? Like the go-to system asks you to straighten your feet. If you straighten your feet, when your hips aren't allowing you to straighten your feet, what happens? You now have torque, even just in your standing posture. You have torque in your knee. So your hips are trying to crank you out, but you're asking your toes to go forward, right? So now there's a torque effect happening at the knee. Now that can cause a lot of compression on the medial side of the knee, especially. So a lot of the GOTA practitioners, if you guys know of GOTA, they've been up a while. Like I've been a corrective exercise specialist for a long time now, and I heard about GOTA a few years ago. And a lot of people who've been through their system have come to me afterwards to work with me and have had 9 times out of 10 medial compression of the knee because they're forcing it, right? So you've got to let your body realign and readjust, and that will naturally show up in your posture and even your movement patterns. So when I analyze someone's run, I just ask them to run, right? And whatever gets expressed, that is the true reflection of where your body is at. You don't try changing anything. Just like even if we've been training for months, it's just like to straighten the feet and get the hips back. You don't try straighten the feet and get the hips back when you run. You're just like, I'm going to run. And if the training is good enough and you've been doing the right things to detach from the body, you will have a very free flow in your shoulders, decompressed spine that can really move, feet that land straight, hips that reach back, a spinal curvature that is maintained throughout your run. Right. So yeah, your standing posture and even your movement patterns should be a consequence of putting your body in the right alignment. And if you have asymmetries, previous injuries, aches, pains, it's kind of addressing the imbalances that has created and allowing them to sort of, be reflected in the way you stand and move. So you basically, if you're like your one shoulder shrugged up and one shoulder's pulled down because you're left-handed and compressed through the side or you had an injury, you don't fix that by forcing yourself to go like this, right? Everyone's heard that if you were a kid that rounds their shoulders, you don't fix it by saying, hey, bring your shoulders back. It's like the hardest thing to tell a kid. They're like, I'm trying, but they always get pulled back. It's just like, okay, you need to teach them how to breathe correctly into the belly, build tension through their backside. And naturally, they're upright and open like this, and they can breathe correctly, and they're loving it, right? That's an example I've had with a client. It was just like always, they brought their kid to me. It was just like, I can't get him to sit up straight, no matter how much I try. He's just like, won't sit up straight, short, round, shoulder. And it's just like, well, he's got compensation. His body literally is holding tension in certain places, right?
Wesley's got a question there for you, Brian. He's got his hand up on.
Yes, thank you.
Love it. Sorry, I didn't know that meant question. I saw the hand there. Wesley, please go for it.
Hello, Brian. I got a question. With work, I sit sometimes long times on my knees, and I got a cushion, but sometimes I forgot the cushion to put before my knees, and after some time, my knees start hurting. Um, Even I did not have any past injuries with my knee. So, how do you say, did I sit wrong on my knees or put too much pressure in short times? Because yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a bit painful.
Right, I get you. So how long have you been doing that? Is that since the last presentation that you've implemented it? Now you have knee pain, right?
I know I don't have it anymore, but the cushion helps a lot. But when I didn't have the cushion, I sat on my knees also, but that created pain. And you saying like sitting on the ground gives you better flow or alignment with compression.
Yeah, yeah, good question. So if you have discomfort and pain creeping up in any one posture, move, adjust. Listen to what's there. Like your body really knows. If you have a tension and tightness in a certain place, if you really hone in and listen, your body knows how to release that itself, right? Like if you compress through right here, your body knows how to sort of adjust and work that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But don't allow any one position to get too uncomfortable. Flow from one to the other, even when you're working. I never stay in one for more than a few minutes, right? Like you flow from one to the other, cross-legged, Caesar, whatever it is. Don't get caught up in one specific posture. So raise your hips up to the point where there isn't discomfort and pain,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly you'll settle lower and lower, right? And flow between different poses and postures. Disclaimer here, like if you've had previous injury, discomfort, pain, there may be specific work that you need to do before even accessing these floor resting postures, right? But that doesn't mean you avoid them. If it's causing you discomfort and pain to get in them,
Mm-hmm.
you rather raise your hips up until you can be in them without compensation or asymmetry. But you might, like if you've had an ACL tear, you might need to do specific corrective work to release the peroneals, the biceps femoris, strengthen the adductors, or whatever it is. Like there might be specific work that you need. But flow between the different postures and build your hip up.
Okay. Thank you.
Love it. Awesome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Alex.
Hi, thanks for this. This has been really good so far. What I'm wondering is when using like a laptop or something, because obviously you're talking about flowing and being dynamic, whereas, do you put like the laptop on the floor? Is there like a particular height like you're trying to get it at? Or, because obviously that's stops you being so dynamic, I guess, when you've got this kind of point of focus.
Yeah. So don't know if you can see that, but this is my desk. It's a low desk. And I work at a low desk like this. Sometimes I have a bench, right? So this is actually my office setup. So we got a low desk and a floor setup, and then if anything, if I'm ever am up, it's on a bench that has no back, right? So yeah, that's my sort of setup. There are some cool things coming out, I believe, in the UK and New Zealand. They've got this desk that can recline from all the way down this low to all the way up to be a standing desk. So, even sitting on a bench or a chair, but not using the seat, like flow between them, the floor, chair height, and standing, like great. I do think that the floor needs to be the one you spend the most time in, because if you think of it like a base, I think of a certain like pyramid of movement that we need to have in check, and the floor resting postures are number one, right? The floor resting postures, crawl movement, efficient movement in a straight line, sidestepping, cutting and turning, agility, and then like combat, ability to strike, throw, absorb blows, jump from land, heights and land, and explosive stuff. So yeah, just make sure you can flow between different things. But yeah, a low desk is awesome. It's like cheap furniture, right? You can throw your couches out. You can even get your whole family involved. And getting back connected to floor living, getting your family involved. Like, hey guys, we're gonna have a meal, this meal, or even just a coffee coffee, tea, whatever it is, while you're sitting on the floor. It's huge, and yeah, it's a lot of fun as well. Right.
We do that quite often as a family. We had a massive table that you could sit around 12 people around that we used for the real movement events, and everyone would be sitting around the table, in the library at one of the places that we had, and you would see who was really comfortable and uncomfortable on the floor. But you would even notice, like, they were 4-day events, and we would sit there sometimes for hours having conversations around this table on the floor. And even over the course of a few days, it would change for guys. And some would have to lean against the wall more or stand up for a bit. But you find these natural adaptations. But we weren't as strategic about it, where I think you can be more strategic. I had a question about the sitting on the feet, like with the toes curled, like that plantar fascia stretch. How long can guys? I'm curious for guys on the call here to get like a group feedback, but also from yourself, Brian, like how long can you sit in that? How does it feel for others to be if everyone knows which one I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, so this like toe tucked variation of Caesar, like that.
Yeah, I can get there, but I can only be there for like 20 seconds.
Right. So this is an interesting one. Like I can be here a few minutes. It's one that gets a lot less comfortable, because it's more of it's a standby posture. If you were really going to rest kneeling, point your toes and settle into Caesar. This is your fascia, your Achilles, your calves. They're primed. Your plantar fascia, they're primed and ready to go. So this would be like they're completely stretched, and they actually want to sort of bounce and move out of this position. So it's not one where I would spend a lot of time, but it is a big part of like my lower body training. For example, like this morning I was doing a split squat variation, right? And I was moving down, that back foot tucked each time. I actually had dumbbells in my hands, and it was this hips back sitting into the side, this other foot tucked, and you kind of raise back. I really have the intent of moving forwards in my training, so I kind of let my hips load, and then I'm up. But that back foot is tucked, right? And sort of rocks back with the toes tucked. It's a great one to teach you how to bound and move out of that lower limb, right? Even in a crawl, there's less demand on a stretch, but you have your toes tucked behind you, and you bound back into your glutes. Now you teach your feet and the plantar fascia, the Achilles, to all work together to bound and move you forwards, right? So you're in this crawl position, toes tucked, and it's now I'm primed and ready to go. Now you take inputs like that back to your feet, and it's time for you to walk, run, you get on the field. Trust me, you feel bouncy, ready to go and move. Now, if that stretch, the one Keegan pointed out, the initial toes tuck kneeling, if that's uncomfortable for you, that's a big sign that you really need to work on the feet. You need to get out of narrow shoes. You need to, you might need to do some corrective work, get that mobility ball that you're working on with your feet. But really, that foot and those toes should be nicely spread. If your big toe does one of those, like turns into the side, right, really that's key for you to get the function of your foot back, get grabbing things, moving things. And a toe spreader, I like might break some hearts here, but just putting a toe spreader in there, like it doesn't quite do it. You need to get that foot functioning correctly. Yeah, I know you've got Graham Tuttle as one of your key connections about the foot, so I won't go on and on about that. But that function of the foot, and if your big toe is sort of taking a corner there, you need to address the plantar fascia. rather than trying to always like work on that toe or manipulate it, work on that entire plantar fascia on that bottom of the foot. It's going to do tons for you, right?
Like I've been doing that as a training posture thing of like sitting for an extended period. Let's get away a bit, but like extended period in this position, and even like putting some weights overhead. And I noticed that
Right.
that is that really like works the feet. I can get muscle soreness in the feet. I can still feel that my feet are the weakest link. You know, I've still had issues with the Achilles when I get into explosive stuff. I heard it doing plyometric stuff 10 years ago, and I'm just been sporadic with training it. So yeah, it's a different conversation, but yeah, that position that you're talking about, it's not painful or anything, but yeah, like 20 seconds is kind of long enough. I got one more for you if you got time, and then if others would, yeah, it'd be good to hear your thoughts, Luke, because I know you're deep into the rehab and physio world. Luke Wilson's working with baseball players, and Brian's into throwing and that as well. The thoughts about the gap between the pelvis and the ribs. Some people talk about, like, you can see, because you talk about a lot about compression. Do you have thoughts or a benchmark around, like, some say that there should be like a gap between the top of the pelvis and the bottom of the ribs, and that's like a sign of compression when there's to do with that spacing. Do you have any thoughts on
that? Not specifically. I don't really know what he's saying there, but that we need to have that length of the belly, right?
Yeah, at the laterally, like some people say that the ribs sit too deep into the pelvis. It's a sign of like that you're getting that like postural compression, that something's out of alignment.
Right.
I know you've heard about this or thought.
So the torso, the torso in general, like for a lot of guys who are training, it's getting crushed like a Coke can, like not from what I call, think of the front side of the body and the back side of the body, like the abdominals, the chest. We're getting that sort of flexion. We're training the front side of the body, and then I'll go do some back extensions and train the back side of the body, and I'll make sure I get open. Now you've got all this compression and tension on the front side, all this compression and tension on the back. That spine down the middle is just not happy. Now, whether your lower back, now between the ribs and the pelvis is obviously the lumbar spine. So I'm talking specifically about the lumbar spine, right? So we can have that compression in the back. Compression can shorten the distance between the ribs and the pelvis, sure. If that's coming from extension, like excessive lordosis, so excessive curvature of the spine, now it's a deep curvature that has compression. If that lower back is excessively flexed or flattened, now all the vertebrae are stacked and being squashed. We see bulging discs, end plate fracture, a whole lot of issues come through there. Now, side to side, we can also have, typically, whichever hand you're dominant on, your rib cage and your pelvis get closer to each other, and your spine turns to that side. So that might be what Luke's referring to there. The lats go, up from the humerus, and the shoulders down. They connect to part of our lower back. So all of this like lat pull downs, any side bending that we're doing, again compressing that torso. Now, without a decompressed spine, it doesn't want to flow and move. With all this compression everyone's putting on their spine, there's no wonder bodybuilders can't flow and move when it's time for them to be on the field. If someone is an on-the-field athlete, they're agile, they cut and turn, even combat sports athletes, I wouldn't be doing much that pulls the rib cage and the pelvis to each other, whether that's through the front, anterior side of the body, back side of the body, like back extensions or like side bends. It's fluidity and forward movement, and it's. I don't want to hate on any training that's going on there. But yeah, anyway, we'll stick with what Luke was asking, that what's going on with the rib cage getting close to the pelvis. I mean, it's compression of that spine that's leading to that, whether it's through excessive extension of the lumbar spine, compression in a flex position, or a side to side imbalance, putting the rib cage close to the pelvis. But everything needs to get.
Yeah, that was my question, Brian. Luke, I was just asking if for Luke's thoughts generally, because he's an injury specialist and he's been listening into most of the conversation here, and he commented about having some challenge with the fully plantar flexed sitting. I can sit in that one easily, but the one on the plantar fascia is not so easy. But yeah, I'd love to hear some thoughts there, Luke, and we'll get towards the end if anyone else wants to share any reflections or additions, and then we'll move on to Jordan.
Yeah, I really enjoyed everything Brian was saying. I think conceptually I would agree with most. I think for me, whether it's an athlete or a patient or whatever, some of those key sitting postures, my consideration, and it'll be something I'll go into a little bit more in my talk in an hour or so, but would be sometimes the structural things that some people just can't physically get to. So especially athletes post-injury, post-surgery type things. I can remember guys who have 1 centimeter of ankle dorsiflexion because they got plates and everything put in there to go. So, you'd be looking at them thinking, okay, well, is that the reason he can't sit in those postures or whatever, versus a neurological or a different gap from there. But I really agreed with your example, Brian, around the young kids and the posture and everything. The amount of people I see weekly, and as they're telling me what's going on, they're like, yeah, I know I've got bad posture and I've got to sit up straight. And you're right, it's impossible to say for anyone to do anything for 8 hours a day. So while we're sitting here, gravity is always acting on us. And if I said to any of the guys on the call now, all right, I want you to do bicep curls for 8 hours, you'd all be thinking, geez, that's extreme. But when our parents or whatever are saying, oh, sit up straight, hold the weight of your head and your upper body up against gravity for 8 hours, that's assumed to be okay. And yeah, I mean, the key is figuring out, as you said, what's the reason they can't? Is it neurological? Is it psychological that they're, a lot of tall kids I see are embarrassed by their height, so they want to shrink away and go? Is it a breathing pattern thing that they can't expand up and open? Are they just weak through the backside? And if they get a bit stronger there, there's a ton of different reasons for that. And I think probably the other part that came out for me, and it might go to the same sort of question Keegan was asking, but I think, like, for me, I describe it as the concept of separation. So especially in baseball and in rotational sports, the ability to rotate your hips but not your upper half to create rotational torque and power is key to performance. But I think it applies to any injury. So, you gave the example about the feet, the ability to separate your big toe from your other ones rather than be everything stuck as a unit. And when we're training or when we're playing sport, there comes a point when we need to be stiff, especially in collision type sports, but even non-collision things where it's change of direction or it's hitting a ball or whatever the case is. We should be able to create stiffness by choice rather than that's just what we are and we can't do anything about it. And yeah, I definitely agree with that idea of a flow and whatever. For me, I describe it as the ability to separate segments. If you're running, to be able to swing your arms a certain range without your shoulders having to go with it. And I think, the stretch strength, the range training, all that sort of stuff, what that can help people get to is a neutral zone. So if we're thinking about the spine, we don't want to be at the extreme of extension. We don't want to be at the extreme of flexion. We want to try and live in neutral, and it should be the same for every joint. And if we train through range, we give ourselves a wider neutral zone, and therefore we reduce the chances of getting to an extreme, and extremes are where injuries happen. So yeah, thanks, Brian. I really enjoyed listening. I think we're probably on the same page with a lot of things, just different vocabularies.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And I get a lot about what you're saying. And kind of the theme of this is allowing the athlete to move and be connected to his movement, not overly connected to his body. So you're connecting different segments of the body, where I'm saying we are one body, and we're getting back into connection with what we want to do. Your body will create the stiffness based on where you need it, right? But it's just to recircle back to the theme of this, just reset to our innate design. But I totally get what you're saying, and asking about the injured athlete. He doesn't trust that body, and he's got, like, I don't like to use the word trauma, but he's got that tension that he holds, that neurological tension that he still connects to that area, that he needs to learn to let go of and trust again. Now, it can only happen at a certain rate as he heals, but yeah, definitely that, like plates in the ankle is an athlete I'm currently working with, and he's getting down to the floor resting postures quicker in other areas of his body, so he's compensating. But we got to wait for that ankle, so he's got to build his hips up until he's let go of that tension and tightness that he's held there, because the plate that he has doesn't have a physical restriction. It's not actually physically, he hasn't had anything restricted in the ankle joint, meaning just in a break in his fibula that has a plate in it. It's just like that shouldn't interfere with the joint of the ankle. So yeah, anyway, it's just you and I will need a conversation of our own about all this. So yeah, we'll say that to another time. Awesome. Thanks, Luke. Good to meet you, man.
Epic. Well, yeah, we could continue that conversation for a long time, but it's good to continue it and to have more awareness around it. And we can see Brian's had massive results with himself, getting back from not really being able to function after a lot of injuries, and being able to get back to a very high level of function, which is cool. We should be sharing our personal experiences and what gets us there. And you can see it's brought a lot of conversation, a lot of practical stuff that we can get into. There's a much deeper conversation to go into around the exercise that follows from the seating postures. But I feel like the seating postures is a really good, like, going back to like a business perspective that we have a lot with OnCom. The seating postures seems like something easy to understand and universally applicable, that it's a good base layer to put this forward, to get this concept started in people's brains as well, to capture hearts and minds. And you can, I think you can see that in the conversation today, Brian, and we're going to go deeper with that. So yeah, thanks for that today, Brian, and we're going to, we've got further we can go with exploring those movements and identifying how to overcome challenges of specific positions, and using it as a diagnostic tool as well. So very good. Thank you very much. Also, Brian's likely to spend some time in Africa again in the future, and it's opening up the possibility for events and connections in Africa, which is really cool. I haven't spent any time over there, but I'm looking forward to it. Maybe a conversation for another time. You can share a bit more about what you got going on over there and what the possibilities are.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, we'll get you back. Get you to Zambia.
Yeah.
Love it. Keegan, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who signed on. Please, reach out if there any questions I didn't get to. But yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, love it.
Stephen. Thank you. Eh?
Yeah, there's a lot of thank yous coming in there. Good energy. Love it. Next up, we have Jordan Potts. Jordan is working with men, getting men back to their best. Legacy Dads, really cool brand. Men who want to leave a positive legacy with their children and with the world, empowering them to improve body composition, improve self-belief, eat better. This is a project that Jordan's launched recently, but circling back a little earlier, for those who don't know the backstory, Jordan can share more himself, but Jordan ran a gym for children out of a very small facility initially, and then expanded that to one of the biggest, coolest gyms on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, one of the best spots in Australia. He had a big performance gym targeting like the 8 to 14 age group that almost nobody targets, and doing amazing stuff with them as well as adults. He moved on from that gym and sold it to Dylan Fowler, who's also a presenter on this event and a member of the network. But since doing that, he's successfully transitioned to online. He's been able to make similar income or more from online business, which is a really cool transition to make. So you're going to hear about the product and the process for men, but you're also hearing a success story of someone transitioning from a physical facility into an online business as well. So thank you, Mr. Potts. Welcome. Over to you.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate the warm welcome. It's always so cool to jump on here, and we tend to forget about all the little micro details in the journey. But yeah, it's cool. It's really cool to be here presenting to you guys. I just always feel grateful to actually be in a position where I get to share my experience. So if I can be of any help to anyone, it's a big win for me. So may as well we'll get into it. Hey, I'll share screen.
Really cool to, if you can put your video on at the start, guys. It's cool to sort of show the faces as well, just to build a bit more of that connection. These things are always better live face to face, but we can't get all together live face to face on mass every month. So this is what we got. So that's a power start image there. Sure.
Just to start, fellas, chuck in the chat. If you're a dad, chuck a 1. If you're not a dad yet, chuck in a 2. Just want to see where we're at. There we go. 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. Gee, a lot of not dad yet. So, guys, this may be a little bit of an insight into what happens when you become a dad. I'll just give you this much. You have the most insane amount of time right now. You have no fucking excuse for anything. Get out there and get it. Because when you become a dad, your values and your time become a massive priority. So let's get into it. All right, I'm going to start presenting here. Thanks for dropping those in the chat. So present full screen. Cool. You guys can see that? Beautiful. So what I've developed, as Keegan said, been in the strength health industry I've been in the industry for 13 years now, and went from being a PT to owning a gym, a small gym, to owning a bigger gym, to transitioning online. And in that 13 years, I've worked with heaps of different kinds of people, different avatars, different results. And I've just recently become a dad 2 years ago. And everything kind of clicked about 6 months ago. I went through the transition of becoming a dad myself and had to learn about being really disciplined with my time, my decisions, keeping myself, my mental health, my physical health, everything in shape. Otherwise, it affected how I was turning up for my partner and for my son, and in my business and in everything. So it all kind of clicked. I realized that everything I'd kind of learned through Keegan is a really, really simple way of getting healthy. Okay. All of these things are about efficiency, and they're about better return of investment for your effort when it comes into business and mind and body and health. And so I took what I had learned and what I was practicing with clients in the gym and, you know, in different bits and pieces. And I thought about how can we make a health system for dads that's just an absolute no-brainer, and it suits a dad who's busy, who's got responsibilities, who thinks he's time poor, but he's sick of having a dad bod. He's sick of feeling like shit. He's sick of being uncomfortable in his own skin. And he wants to be strong. He wants to be healthier. He wants to be a great example for his kids, attractive partner and a supportive partner to his wife or his partner. But he just struggles, okay? Because there's so many opportunities for excuses once your time becomes more strict or more once your time gets pulled in many different directions, it becomes very easy to make excuses for your health. Usually it comes last if it's not that valuable in your head. So Legacy Dads was formed so that I could help dads who feel like they're too busy for health create and learn a system that they can do in just 30 minutes a day. So I'm going to run you through what that system looks like. Now, I want to run through just a little bit of visuals first, because we are in one of the most interesting times when you look at men. Okay, all you have to do is look back a few generations and it was a completely different picture. But now there's such a big focus on money and wealth and building and creating and providing for the family. Yet we have become quite displaced when we look at health, and that's a personal opinion, but it also is proven in statistics. So 70% of men are overweight. All right, that's more than women. Women are like 61.2, but 70% of men are overweight. And 60% of all men are fathers. So of that majority, they're the ones bringing up our children. Okay, so that's the example that's being set for our children. The majority of men are overweight or unhealthy, and that's what our kids are looking up to. And then we question why the health of kids is declining and has declined so much. Now, there's lots of different factors, but I do believe the example you set as a father will dictate the level of respect and dictate the worldview of those around you. And so, you know, if we look to the top left corner, I know and see way too many dads like this in the main street. If you go down the shopping center, if you go to the movies theater, if you go wherever, you'll see a lot of men walking around like this. You know, we see the celebs, they've got all the money, they've got the wealth, they've got the status, yet so many of them still have, you know, the dad bods. All right, they get a bit lazy, they lose discipline, they start eating shitty food, habits go out the window. And unfortunately, having money scapegoats health a little bit. You know, like just because you've got money means you'll probably land, you know, a pretty girl, or, you know, have babes hanging off you and have opportunities being thrown at you. But that's not to undermine the respect that's earned by a male who is healthy and is strong and is fit. So it's not that we should sacrifice wealth for health. It's we can have it all. Okay. I don't know if you guys have seen Andy Elliott recently. He's blowing up on social media down the bottom left corner. But I love this guy's ethos, because first of all, in his company, if you don't have a six-pack, you get fired, or you don't even get hired if you don't have a six-pack. And then if you lose your six-pack, you get fired from the business. So the standard and the ethos within his company is that you have to be fit. You have to respect your fitness to actually maintain your job. Guys like Joe Rogan, you know, he's a dad, super busy. You know, he's a martial artist and he's been active his whole life. But when you look at a man like Joe Rogan, you just have a level of respect for him because you appreciate the work and the effort that's gone into building a mind and a body like his. And then, you know, we look at look at the leaders, for instance, Donald Trump, whether I'm not getting into politics, but, you know, you see a lot of guys in suits and they've got these bellies pushing on the belt. And then Robert F. Kennedy was banging out push-ups. And that's just such a great image. I think when I saw Robert Kennedy doing those push-ups, there was a level of respect for me. It's like, this guy has a different view on things. He's out there, he's getting strong. And I seem to trust someone who's fit versus someone who's unfit. Just because I understand I know that they understand discipline. And so the question I've got to with fathers is, what are the barriers from the top to the bottom line? Like what puts a man in those top runner photos and what puts a man in the bottom runner photos? And that's kind of the mission that I'm on to solve with Legacy Dads. So the 3 barriers of entry to health for dads that I believe is very common, or the most common, is, first of all, time is the biggest excuse that I hear across the board. It is the number one excuse that I hear in dads, is that time, they never have enough of it. There's too many responsibilities. There's priorities. They've got to do this. They've got to look after the kids. They've got to go to work, all these things. By the time the end of the day finishes, there's no space for health. And so they just go year on, year out, and then all of a sudden they're unhealthy and they're living a life that they're not fulfilled with. The second one is too complex. So a lot of health programs, and I think this is where the health industry lets a lot of men down, is, they got to weigh their food, they got to eat at this time, they got to do this, they got to take this amount of supplements, they got to do this, they got to have this rest time, they got to train, they got to do this amount of sets and reps. And it's like, fuck, it just becomes so complex, and it becomes so hard to adhere to the programs that they actually create more stress in their minds trying to achieve the program. And then the last one is discipline. All the time I hear guys are saying, it just gets too hard and I give up, or, I do it for a couple of months and then I give up, or whatever. It's just like, they don't have that integrity behind their word, and they don't turn up and do the work long term. So they're not in the game long enough to see the results that get you keen to keep going. And so Legacy Dads is built on, the system I've built on is to actually dissolve these 3 barriers of entry. Okay, so the first one I want to dissolve is the time excuse. I want to take time poor, busy dads and give them a time efficient model that is simple, and it gives them a bigger return of investment on the time, on the minutes that they can invest into their health. So if I can take a 60 or 90-minute session and compress it into 30 minutes, even 10 minutes is our emergency session, then I know that every single man out there has 10 to 30 minutes. And if you tell me you don't, you're fucking lying. And that's just the accountability that needs to happen amongst men. It's like, brother, you're not telling me that you don't have time. You're sitting on Instagram, you're watching Netflix, you're looking at reels of the sport of the weekend, the footy. You've got 10 minutes. Okay, at a bare minimum, you've got 10 minutes. At a max, you've got more than 30 minutes, put in more effort, but I know you can get 30 minutes done. So number 2, going from complexity into simplicity. So creating health in general is really quite simple. And I feel that most of you on this call would understand that. But a lot of people out there think health is quite hard. When we get health super simple, it actually becomes repeatable, and there's a bigger return on investment because it's not complex to stick with it. So the more simple we can make the protocols, the more simple we can make the training, and the more simple we can make the daily focus, the greater chance there is for repeatability and for a greater return on the results that they see on their end. And then lastly, instead of focusing on no discipline, just getting guys into a community so they understand and they have a frame of reference that there's other guys in positions, there's other dads in business, there's other dads with responsibilities who are doing this stuff and who are there to keep them accountable. So these 3 pillars have been a massive change in what I do with delivering my experience in health and wellness and strength and conditioning, and bringing it to dads so that they actually have a 90-day system that's simple, effective, and repeatable to get them to where they want to be. So running through this system creates crazy results. And the guys that join, they read the prep documents, they get their head around the program, and they go, bro, like, is this it? Like, they really can't, they can't wrap their head around how simple it is. But I just say to them, brother, all I need you to do is give me 90 days, trust the process, and I'm guarantee you're going to get results. If you turn up and do the work, you are guaranteed to get results. And I even I say to these guys, if you do the work for 90 days and you don't get results, I'll give you a full money back guarantee. But I know that if they turn up and do these actions for 90 days, they're going to get crazy results. So these are just 3 of the dads that we've had recently go through the program. Nick stopped drinking. He's been a massive drinker his whole life. He did the values elicitation document. He got really clear that that was one of the biggest things that was holding him back. So he cut it cold turkey. He started training. He's lost 23 kilos in total. He's now connected with his wife and his kids. He said he's never had a connection like this with his wife and kids. He's never hasn't spoken and had deeper conversations with his wife in 15 years. And now they're laughing their heads off and having fun. Every time they come home, they're not at each other's throats. They're coming home from work and actually enjoying each other's company. Like, for you guys who aren't dads yet, you may have girlfriends or partners, whatever. When your relationship breaks down, it fucking eats you up from the inside out. It eats you up. And so to rekindle that and have that get back to like a harmonious place is such a big win. Now, he has said he's the happiest he's ever been. He doesn't see himself needing to go back to alcohol because he's now got bike riding with his young fella. He's got strength training in the afternoon. He's got his ice baths. He's got steaks. He's got the relationship with his wife. He's actually fulfilled in his life versus having to drown his sorrows every afternoon because he's fucking hating who he is as a man. Then we got Brent. So Brent also decided to overcome his drinking issue. He would come home from work and sink tins or lavo, sit on the couch and watch telly and watch the kids running around, feeling like a sorry, sad sack of shit for himself. And he decided that he needed this change. He came to a live event with me and he made the decision on the spot. He said, mate, I need to be involved with better men. I need to be a better man. I'm not happy with where I'm at. He's now a much better businessman. He's starting to think bigger around his business and enterprise. He was actually quite a skinny guy. He has a smaller, leaner frame. And in just 8 weeks, he's stacked on 4 kilos of muscle. He's doing stuff on the rings that he didn't think was possible. He's playing with his kids every single afternoon. His wife's super connected to him again. It's just, life's incredible. It's been a massive life-changing effect just doing these simple things. Now, Louis tried to quit smoking 10 times. He said, mate, I've tried to quit smoking so much in the past, and it wasn't until I joined this community and had the accountability, did the values elicitation, so I actually got really clear on what my values are for the future and how I can say no and how I can strengthen my word. He's actually implemented all this stuff. He's lost 7 kilos. He's strong. He's lean. He actually quit his job in the prisons. He was working in the prisons and he started his own business, which he's absolutely frothing on. He's got a heap more confidence and energy, feels much better around his young fella and his wife. He's sky high. And it's incredible because all these guys have said, I'm not stressing. I've not got less stress in my life. Stress still pops up, but I've got such a greater ability to handle the stress and work through it that I just feel so much more capable in life. And that's such a big win for a dad to actually have that confidence and self-trust in yourself. You're not going to lose your shit, or you're not going to do something stupid, or you're not going to jeopardize your relationship or, the connection you got with your kids. So they're huge results just from simplicity. Now, I want to run you through how simple this thing is. So it's based on 3 pillars. The 3 pillars are, first of all, a values-based man. Second of all, the simple nutrition. And then third of all, dense strength. So if we can nail these 3 pillars, then I know they're going to get crazy results. So in the values-based man, we work on a values elicitation. So we get core values designed, and then we go personal roadmap. So they know their targets that they need to hit throughout the 90 days to make sure they're on track. And then we make sure they're practicing their values each day. So it reinforces into their subconscious that this is how they make decisions now. With a simple nutrition, we start with a gut and parasite cleanse. Paul Chek said he believes more than 70% of our population is carrying some form of nasty critter or bug or fungal overgrowth that's inhibiting their health. And so from doing this myself and seeing the results in hundreds of people, I know that this is such a great kind of service for your body just to do at least once a year, just to make sure you're not getting a waterborne parasite or you're not having anything that's inhibiting you from progressing your health. So we start, first 30 days is a gut and parasite cleanse. We then go into carnivore for 30 days, and then we go into animal-based for 30 days. So they get this experience of how simple energy and nutrition can really be, especially for a man. It's a massive win. And then into dense strength. So dense strength is simply just daily deposits. So getting these guys into a routine of training being a part of who they are as a man. If you can get your daily deposits in, you're going to see progressive overload. You're going to see improvements in your strength, and you're actually going to see the results that you've been wanting for so long, signing up to all these programs. It's just that you have to be consistent. So we lead into basics, build beasts. Now, this is something Keegan has pressed so much into my head over the years, is that if you're not nailing the basics, like, it's not worth playing around with the complex stuff. So we simplify it. I get the dads to just do the basics. It's based off Nico's original dense kind of like blow up when he blew up his dense strength stuff on the motion guy. He was just doing pull up, dip, and then the pistol squat. And so I've got them on a variation of those three that they do at their level, whatever they can do. And then lastly, with the dense strength is the environment. So making sure they're seeing the other guys training in the group, making sure they're seeing the wins, they're all celebrating each other's wins. This really creates that dopamine effect and that buy-in to the fact that, you know, turning up every day and getting a session done really helps you progress. And so keeping it super simple allows them to adhere to the program a lot more, but it allows the delivery of it to be much more a higher level, because all we have to do is focus on nailing the basics and we're going to get incredible results. So for instance, in the values-based man, my focus is literally to figure out core values so they can make better decisions and have integrity in their day. Okay, if they struggle to say no, if peer pressure is a big thing in their life and they cave into having cakes or, you know, a smoker or, you know, beers or whatever, drugs even, they're never going to progress. So we've got to get the core values right so they can build that no muscle. They can start saying no with confidence, and then they're standing for something. You know, there's such a great quote. It's, if you stand for nothing, you'll stand for something or you'll fall for everything. Okay. And men who don't stand for anything, they literally fall for everything. They're just kind of people pleasing their way through the day, trying to get appraisal from everyone. Simple nutrition, reduce the sugar, strip back to basics, optimize the gut microbiome, bring up your acidity levels, which is so low in most people, break down the biofilm, and then all that nasty stuff starts to leave. You see people passing in their shit, see their skin diseases go away, you know, all these conditions, you know, psoriasis, eczema, these things start to clear up because they're actually addressing their gut health before thinking about, you know, physique or, you know, the external health. We look going the internal first. So, you know, we then go into carnivore and animal based. So we're reducing inflammation, boosting their hormones, satiating hunger, getting rid of cravings, all that stuff disappears, and then just boosting, increasing energy and the focus. So they actually feel like they're, you know, superheroes in their own mind or in their own body. Dense strength. I love dense strength. It's been such a big game changer for me this year. It's enabled me to unlock so many things that I've wanted to unlock. And it really excites me for the future, and being able to deliver this to the guys and show them the simplicity and see them having massive wins as well is really cool. And it's showing that maybe we need to rethink time invested into training. Maybe we need to think more about training smarter instead of training harder. And, you know, doing the dense strength, I strip it right back to the basics of just progressive overload. So we do pull-ups or ring rows, depending on their level, dips or push-ups, depending on their level, and then squats or pistols. I get them to start with 10-minute blocks on each. So we got a 30-minute session. And the goal is to get eventually to 10D10 on each movement. And if they can get to 10D10 and they've built the base, then we progress to more skillful things. So by having this and linking it all back to community, this is what these guys are seeing in the group chat every day. You know, we've got guys training, we've got guys doing ice baths, we've got guys doing pull-ups, dips, riding, you know, doing pushies with their sons. Even the sons are jumping in, doing the sessions with them, eating steaks. Like, it's this thriving hub. It's the feedback mechanism and the product of an environment where men actually see other men getting after it in a very positive way and putting their energy to good use. And I believe the community aspect is the biggest driving force to most of these results. You know, if we were to do it alone, it's so much less valuable. By doing it with other people, it becomes so much more valuable. You feel a part of something bigger than yourself. the accountability naturally goes up because, you know, you naturally want to progress in the community. You naturally want to be in the higher realms. You want to get into the elites. And that's just a part of human nature. So by having these guys in here, they're being inspired by others, and they're naturally inspiring others by posting their content as well. And it just helps them understand that other men are going through stress. Other dads have got responsibilities and priorities and family and business to deal with, but they're posting their training, they're posting their meals, they're posting their ice baths, they're posting the connection with their family, and it's making it such a real reality that can come true when they put the work in. And so it's been such a transformational transition for myself to simplify all of my experience and actually give it in a deliverable model where guys can adhere to it with the utmost commitment. It is so easy to get this system done, and by having it so easy to adhere to, the results are going through the roof. So very, very exciting times, because I feel like I have a product that's actually going to make a generational impact. You know, I've worked with kids before with the gym. I've worked with mums, dads, whole families. We literally had whole families that were in our training programs. But now being a dad and seeing the direct response and influence on my partner and my son when I'm at my best, I've realized the best person, the best impact I can have in the world is working with other dads. And this is the system that I know is going to change the world, and it's going to change the world of the men who join this program. And it's so encouraging to see the results coming through and building a community like this. So super simple. Like I said, I want to make things more simple, and I want to dissolve the barriers of entry and transform them into opportunities and power. And so the way we do it, like I said, number one, we take that no time excuse or the poor time excuse, and we turn it into time efficiency. We take too complex, too hard to adhere to, and we make it extremely simple. And then we take no discipline. Oh, I'm quitting. I just don't have, I can't turn up. I don't really know what I'm doing. Couldn't be bothered. All right, got too hard. And we turn it into a brotherhood. We inject them into a community, a frame of reference where they see the possibilities every single day by dads doing 10, 20, 30 minutes of training and eating good food. And so by following this system, these guys are just getting incredible results, and it makes my heart smile, because I know, I've heard about the influence on the kids, how, the kids are saying, oh, Dad, I can see your abs now, or I can see your muscles, or, oh, you're not just sitting on the couch being lazy and boring. The wives are saying, I'm loving your body. You've got so much more energy. You're more supportive. You're more calm. You're not as angry. All of these other feedback mechanisms that we're receiving and the results that these guys are getting are so beneficial. And I know them myself because I've felt them. I've felt the ups and downs in relationship, ups and downs of being a dad. And when you're winning as a dad, life's amazing. When your health is tanking and your relationships are tanking, it eats you up, and it's very hard to deal with. So to get back onto that winning side helps you so much with your own journey. So super stoked on it, guys, and grateful to share the method. Hope that you can see that even with simplicity, you can get incredible results. And if that's one thing that I can encourage out of this, it's like, think about what you're doing and simplify it to the max where you can adhere to it daily. And another quote from Keegan is, if it's worth doing, do it daily. If it's not worth doing daily, it's probably not worth your time. The more you become the thing, the easier the results are, because it's just a part of who you are. So thanks for listening. I'm going to open up for questions, and super stoked to share it with you guys. So I'll stop this share and open it up. If anyone's got questions, shoot them through. I'll have a quick look at the chat.
I got a question, Jordan.
Yeah, mate.
Thank you, by the way. What's the age ranges for your group right now? Like, for example, I sent a screenshot to my dad, and he's like 56. I was hoping he would want to join. How does that work? Is it a select age group or pretty open?
Nah, no, I mean, my target market is 30 to 45, but we've got a couple of 50-year-olds in the group. And those guys, like, they're doing their first pull-ups. I don't know if you follow Legacy Dads on Instagram, you'll be able to see Dion. Actually, I think Dion's late 40s or mid 40s, but he like struggling to do a pull-up when he started, and now he's banging out 10D4. So he's doing 40 reps in 10 minutes. And like he's dropped 13 kilos and like he's got muscles popping, and he's like, bro, I didn't think I could get this fit in my 40s, you know, and it's just simple. It's so simple. So yeah, if your dad wants to have a chat, man, I'd love to have a chat to him and see, you know, how I can make his life more simple. Awesome. Anyone else?
Hey Jordan, thanks for the presentation. What cleanses are you using, and do you for that first 30 days?
So it's a really simple, it's basically just a whole foods cleanse. So we're looking at decreasing the amount of the variability of food that your gut has to digest. And then I use a certain acid to address the biofilm, or to break down the biofilm in the gut. And this is usually where things are clinging on to the gut wall, or, you know, it's kind of creating a barrier to you actually clearing out your colon. If you want to talk about that, we can talk in the DMs. It's not what I want to talk about on a recorded session. But you know, you can send me a DM and I can tell you more about it in information. So yeah, basically whole foods and then bringing the acid levels up in the gut so you start to clear the colon.
Great, thank you. And you know, I really appreciate how you said you keep it really simple with either the regressions to progressions for you know, dips and push-ups and pistols and whatnot. So would you progress with loaded squats? So you're starting with like body weight squats, then you get them up 10D10, and then at that point, do you start working them right towards pistols, or do you go for a little bit of load, or you know, maybe a weighted vest, or something like that, to keep upping their strength? Or what do you typically find that you're using?
Great question. And to return back to simplicity, I don't want a barrier of entry to be equipment. So with everything I'm doing in the 90-day Hero Dad, which is the first 90 days, their initiation, it's all bodyweight training. So if they can't do 10D10, like some guys are out of shape, they struggle with 10D10 bodyweight squats. Like 100 squats is hectic volume for them. So we're building up to 10D10 just bodyweight squats. If they can do heels elevated, even better. So I'm getting the depth into the squat. And then as they get to that 10D10, then we can bring them down into pistol regression. So I've either got like negatives, or I've got, you know, a single leg down to a supported stand back up, you know, so we kind of like break it down in that sense. But everything in the base, building the base, is about the basics, which is no equipment. The only equipment they need is a set of rings. But following, once they've built the base, then I've got other programs that are going to be either focused on handstand push-up, barbell basics, you know, squat, dead bench, using dense strength in other ways. But I want to get them into that transition of like, you don't need a gym, you don't need equipment to get extremely fit and healthy.
Do you ever find that some of the people are resistant to, like I'm in here in New York, and everybody, they're trying not to bring fitness into their home, or they're going to the gym and everything is kind of like blown apart and outside. Do you ever find resistance to that method? Is all the work going on in the home, or are yeah, I guess that's an easier question.
All right. Are you a dad?
Two out and one on the way.
Cool, man. That's awesome. So this is the thing I put forward to the dads, right? What do we want our children to copy? You know, if your actions at home are going to be copied by your children, what actions do you want to put forward as an example? one of the biggest things that lights me up personally is now that my 2.5-year-old can nearly do a full skin the cat, like he does a full leg lift, goes upside down, like brings his legs through. And it's just so epic. You can do a 35-second hang as a 2.5-year-old, but that's only because I've had the rings hanging up at home the whole time he's been born, and since his birth. And he sees me playing on the rings all the time. So he wants to swing on them. His grip strength's got incredible. He does handstands. It's like, for me personally, and the men aren't, I don't impose this value on them. But as a father, if I can teach my son that his normal is being strong, is being flexible, is, being able to do pull-ups and push-ups and handstands, that to me is more important than going to a gym. If I can get the work done at home and I can be that example for my kids, I know that I'm doing a natural, I'm leading naturally without using my words. I'm just doing it through my actions. And so that's what I present the guys. Now I do about 2 to 3 sessions at a gym each week, but 70% of my sessions are at home, and Indy trains with me basically all the time. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
That's a big point to it.
Great. Thank you.
Great question, though. Great question. It also strengthens the relationship. If your kids are hanging out with you and having conversations and, starting to train, they're going to look to you for advice on those things. So, you become you become a resource to them other than just a parent. You become that friend, you become that confidant that you can actually teach them how to be strong, which is super cool. I know I love watching Keegs training with his kids, because they're, a few years ahead, and it's really cool to see what they're doing. He's starting to play all the games with them now and reaction, and, it's cool. I think that's a big part of what we want as dads, is to see how other dads are doing things well, and then learning from the things they're not doing well as well, which is a big part of our community.
We should start sharing some of those games and on the list of products to build, or areas to share. But we just started playing a card game. I invented a card game the other day with Manu in the morning, just like 2 cards to make it like speed up his maths of simple numbers. But then we added it can quickly become like where it's working on many levels of like reading the other person and bluffing and like betting, and so it escalated really quickly into this super fun game. But one of the simplest ones you can do, I don't know if you've played this yet, Jordan, is like copycat. And the kids love it. Like they're 7 and 9, but you just lead and then the other person leads. We do it in the pool, we do it in the lounge room, and it's like sometimes it's really challenging stuff for me, like animal movement sort of patterns or just random stuff that they come up with. But then Manu's pretty good with his frog sit and tuck planche and stuff now. So he's like hanging out in his tuck planche for 10, 15 seconds. And it's like, but yeah, it's like copycat is on the simplest level, and then it is going to evolve in complexity. There's other games and challenging each other with and sharing games that we're playing is going to be a lot of fun as well. I wish we started this conversation a bit earlier, but it's cool having you in the network, kind of pushing this side of things forward and encouraging play with the children as well. Like that's maybe another bonus that you can add to the product. Like it'd be a cool thing to work on together and get feedback from all across our network. There's lots of fathers in the group, tons of value in that, and something really unique as well. That like there's a lot of people doing like fit dad stuff. Like, no, you got a really nice method with this, and it's obviously working. But yeah, there's like cool stuff there, point of difference that you can continue to add and be the only solution. I mean, you already are, but like always looking to up the product. Are there other questions there, gentlemen? The business perspective one, I'd like you to look at this through as well. Like you can see this is a simple, like you can see the values, you can see what the product is, who it's for. Like everyone should I guess through the lens of business as well, of like, why is this working? How's this come to market? And it's a, multiple tens of thousands of dollars business within a few months. That's something else, the other hat that we should be looking at this conversation through. Luke?
I was just going to second what Jordan was saying for the guys that don't have kids, or if you're coaching dads and whatever, and like, kids will do what they see, not what you tell them. We can probably all think back to when we were younger, and the moment someone tells you not to do something, it's all you want to do. So if you're telling your kids, it was a big, I always knew it, but it eventually became a trigger for me to get my ass back into gear with my training in some way, shape, or form. Because I just knew, talk about betting and poker faces and whatever. I've got a shit poker face, and I just knew that if I'm telling my kids, don't eat junk food, exercise, it's good for you, it's important, they're looking at me going, you're a fat piece of shit, why would I listen to you? They're not going to do it. Now at the moment, I don't fit a lot of my training in when they see me, but they know I train because they see me when I don't have a shirt on or whatever. Like, we were at a party the other week and all the dads there were commenting on how good shape I was in compared to them. And my kids could hear that. And that was awesome. Like, my 5-year-old at the moment doesn't want to wear a shirt to bed because that's what dad does. And that's an awesome feeling. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, sort of based on Chris's question and everything there, that they do what they see, not what you tell them. So if you want them to do good stuff, then model good stuff for them.
Yeah, I think the worst thing you can do for your kids in terms of self-confidence and discipline and trust is have a dad bod. It's just such a big statement when you look like shit. It's not that physique is the be all and end all, but it is a massive game changer. You take a man who has everything but his physique, and then you give him a better physique, he'll be 10x the man he was before he had that physique. So, it's like and this is why I'm working with dads in business, because I know that they've got more money to invest in quality foods, grass-fed steak. They're not going to skimp out on investing in resources. I've spent so long dealing with people who, $100 product, $500, it's too much, or they don't have the means to continue financially. When men buy in, they're less likely to quit. If I charge a guy $100 for a program, there's a good chance something's going to become a better option when he can't be bothered. If I charge a guy $5,000, he's fucking doing the work. He's like, I'm not gonna quit on this. I've paid, put some skin in the game. So, that's where it's like we're actually inspiring men to get behind their word and be better men, have stronger physique, stronger minds, better health, better examples. It's huge. And the kids in those families are now looking up to stronger men.
So important. Are you planning on some live events to go with it, Jordan? Or
yeah, so we're actually going to be doing. I've got to sit down and map out the exact year, but my plan is 4 quarterly events. We're going to do 4 throughout the year, and it's going to be working toward a physical achievement. So it might be like a hike, or we might do some sort of competition, or even one of the fellows was like, I've always wanted to do a marathon, but I'd love to do it with everyone else. So we're looking at having physical feats where we get together and we challenge each other physically, and we'll raise money as a group. So the Legacy Dads will have like a donation charity running, and we'll give it to some form of family charity or dad charity or something to that. So we want to have an impact where it's greater than us just training as a group. It's actually about, okay, let's get together, let's get stronger, fitter, faster, healthier, and put it to test. Like, we'll actually test it, and we'll raise money for people who are less fortunate at the same time. So looking at that, and then we've got retreats coming as well. So it's going to be an exciting 2024. Alex has just asked. Hard sell though, isn't it? Because there's no real program behind, just a group chat. No, there's absolutely a program. And to cut to the chase, men don't want to buy a program. Men want results. And so if you can prove that for that $5,000 that they'll lose their dad bod, they'll make more money, they'll have more focus, more discipline, be a better father, ultimately they don't give a fuck what the program is. They want the result. The best thing about what I'm doing is the program isn't too complex. There's not got too many arms where they can't actually finish it. It's actually really simple to finish, and it's going to give them the return of investment of being the man that they want to be. So, the 5K that they've invested means they're not going to quit on themselves. They're not just going to go, oh, fuck, whatever. They're actually going to put some skin in the game and turn up and get the result. And then the beauty of it is it's so simple to adhere to that they actually get the results much faster than they think, because they start to get the dopamine kick in. The brain starts to see progress. They get progressive overload in their pull-ups, their push-ups, their dips, and they start winning in self-confidence and the results they're seeing each day. So is it a hard sell? It's probably a hard sell to a dad who doesn't have money and has got a worker's mindset. But to a man in business who's making good money, if you're making a couple of $100,000 a year, $5,000 is nothing to drop the dad bod and become a better man. I gotcha. But don't you have dads who don't want to pay when they find out it's super simple? Yeah, I just say to them, go and do a more complex program. Like ultimately, at the end of the day, they want the result. So I can say, you can go and start some, undulating 12, 15 sets per session, 3-4 different muscle groups, 4-day splits, this, that, go to a gym, have to get your technique right, don't get hurt, all this shit that comes into strength conditioning, like the complexity of it. Like I'm a very simple man, so I've got a little bit of after 15 years of working on myself and training and learning heaps of different stuff, sports science, strength conditioning, I've kind of actually landed on dense strength and with the basics and gone, I actually don't care about any of that stuff anymore. Unless someone's like rehabbing an injury, I'm just like, just do the basics. If you're not an athlete, and you just want to be fit and healthy, just keep it super simple and do it every single day. And so I think that as a dad, I'm not sure if you're a dad, Alex, but the attraction to simplicity and repeatability without a lot of mental effort is a huge win. Like knowing that you can just turn up and do some push-ups and pull-ups and get jacked and boost your testosterone and boost your discipline. It's huge. Like it's like a hack.
I think it's Alex's limiting beliefs and experience around business so far that's coming out there. I'm not sure about his background. He's jumped in for the workshop, but this is also what the workshop is about: is expanding your mind as far as what business is and how it works and what people are really looking for. It's 100% what Jordan's saying. Like the people were buying the outcome. The simpler you can make the outcome, the more effective it's going to be. The iPhone is the best example of this. The iPhone took all the buttons off the phone. The BlackBerry was the phone of choice when iPhone took over the market. BlackBerry had everything on the screen and it had a million buttons, and the simplicity is the ultimate sophistication with Tesla as well. Like they're looking to make the car look and perform more simply. And yeah, they're for sure there's a market for complex training for Olympic athletes. And we've just had a coach join whose goal is to coach the most Olympic champions. Sebastian's on here. I'm not sure. I think he was on earlier, but he's going to have some complexity in the programming. Like that's, he's got the Labo RMP account. There's going to be some complexity. There's going to be some other levels of thought in that program, but that's not what Jordan's selling. He's not selling Olympic gold medals. He's selling, get into exceptional shape without the complexity. So it's understanding who you're selling to, what you're selling them. There's people who, if it's not $5,000, they're going to feel really awkward about buying it. They wouldn't buy a $50 thing. There's no point in them buying an ebook. There's no point in them doing some free challenge. because they know they've done that before 50 times, and they need leverage, they want support, they want a coach. There's a big market out there, and Jordan is solving a specific problem. How do you know? Because the market's telling him. The money's coming in and the testimonials are there. I've spoken to clients of Jordan's who are super excited about the transformation that they've had. Cassio is one of them. He's on the call here. He's been through the program. He loves it. I've also spoken to Brett, who had a massive life transformation. So that's the cool thing, is understanding that the market is big and the market will tell you the truth. And Jordan's validated this already and will continue to do so. But he has skills in sales. He has skills in social media. He has an enterprise. He has developed the enterprise self and doesn't have an issue with investing in himself. He's invested tens of thousands of dollars in education for himself. And so there's no hang up of, someone investing $5,000 in themselves is not something that Jordan feels negatively about at all, because he knows how positive it's been for him to do that. So, we're all going through this journey as well. If anyone who doesn't feel what Alex is talking about, you had a time when you did. I remember back to when I would have had questions like that as well. It would have seemed crazy to me 10 years ago, 15, 12 years ago, what Jordan's proposed to us. But now it seems normal. I don't know if you want to share anything there, Alex, where you're at.
Hey there. Thanks for sharing, guys. Yeah, I'm just what I'm getting to is that in the sales process, at some point, the dads you're selling to, you're gonna present to them the program, and they're gonna be, like a super simple program. Then if it's so simple, why should they join? Why should they pay so much? I get it that it's not the complexity and it's not a program you're selling, but I don't understand how. Maybe those dads really need the accountability or the community to support them. But I don't really get it how they can make the switch.
Okay, well, it's a great question, and I understand the mindset. All right, so say if I get to these dads and say, all right, if I destroy all the fat on your body and give you a six-pack tomorrow and make you the man you want to be, how much would you pay for it? Would you pay $5,000 for it? Literally, if you just click my fingers, tomorrow you've got...
Yeah, if they have to do nothing, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so if I then say to them, all right, you've got to pay $5,000, but you've got to do this list of 150 things, and you got to take these amount of supplements, and you got to weigh your meals, and you got to do this amount of sets and have this amount of rest, and you got to do this, and you've got to learn this technique and watch these videos. And then there's like a portal where you've got to watch 45 videos to understand the gut cleanse. And then when you go through that, then I need you to go through the checklist in the Facebook group and make sure you tick off every single bit. They're like, bro, it's like, it sounds like heaps. So I'm like, dude, take it out of all the complexity of every program that you failed, that you couldn't adhere to because it was too much or you didn't have the time to do it. I'm giving you something that you can do that is guaranteed to work in under 30 minutes a day. It's all you need. It is so simple that you can't fail. All you need to do is commit and turn up and you get the result that you want. So I've actually made the barrier to entry so low when it comes to their effort, but the return of investment so high. And so that's where the value comes in, because these dads realize that everything they've tried in the past for a cheaper price tag, they've either quit or they haven't got the results. And so by putting some skin in the game, I don't know about you, Alex, but when I laid down $24,000 for a mentorship, I was not going to quit that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was balls to the wall learning that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to put $200 in, I probably could have quit at any point. And you know what? That $24,000 program was the most simple thing I've ever done in terms of training. Like to the point where I actually thought this can't be right. It's way too simple. But I applied it and it worked. So that $24,000 showed me how to simplify my life and make much more money, serve my clients much better, and get them better results in the very same framework.
Mm-hmm.
So for dads, I understand what you mean. And for you, $5,000 may seem like a big investment in a simple program, but for a dad who's sitting on $500,000-$600,000 a year or, you know, even a couple of, you know, 200-300 grand a year. 5 grand to get 6-pack abs and be a better man in 90 days is nothing.
I see, but it's not men who are educated in exercise, then, is it?
No, it's men in business. And
Okay.
you know what? A lot of them are ex-athletes. A lot of these guys, they know what to do. They know if they went and fucking did a 5K run and started eating better and lifted some weights at the gym, that they'd get fit. But for a lot of them, the community is such a big value to see other dads doing it, and the camaraderie that being a part of a team gives them so much value to go like, oh, this is a huge community that I can be a part of, that makes me feel like I'm a part of something that's bigger than my own shit.
I
And
see.
one of the biggest realizations, this came from Hormozy, right? One of the biggest realizations I had, and it was then strengthened from Seb, who's actually involved in Uncommon and involved with Keegan. He said, if you just take what you're doing right now and charging people $500 and find a market who's willing to pay 5 grand for it, you've just up-leveled your wealth by doing exactly the same thing. And I've been battling this, you know, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but I've been battling with $100 to $500 products for a long time. You know, whether it was $60
like digital products.
Well,
or
even in the gym industry, I think back to my gym, I was like $50-$60 a week. If I had,
services, gotcha, services, okay, not physical products.
No, but even with digital products, I've got ebooks that are worth anywhere from $50 to $500. If I was to reopen a gym, I would open a gym only for men, only for dads in business, and I would charge like $1 grand a month for the membership. Like way higher than the local CrossFit, way higher than the local, you know, the gym, because I would make it's not a gym. It's a brotherhood. You come to the brotherhood every single day and you get your session in. You know, we do ice baths. We do the same stuff that I was serving to the general population. But now I've got a niche that has the money. They've got the money sitting in their accounts. They got the money streaming through their cash flow in the business. It's an investment in the result that they want. And so if you find the market that's willing to pay for it, they'll basically, like Hormozy took what he was charging people a couple $100 with and started charging, you know, 6 figures. The same product, but he just started, you know, charging a higher amount for it, and, you know, scaled his business. And that's his whole model. I know people who have worked with Hormozy and they're like, I paid, you know, 60 to 100 grand, and he actually simplified my whole business. He made it more simple and took things away. He didn't make life more complex.
I see.
What do you see when you hear that? Because there is obviously something that's not clear. Like, it's not like can clearly see it. So what's
I guess you have to find the right niche who's ready to pay for your product and advertise to them. That's the biggest challenge you have.
It's marketing, sales and marketing skills, and confidence in yourself. If you've got a lot of negative negative feelings about money, if you've never really made money, then it's all going to feel weird to you, and it's going to feel weird to the other people. Jordan had to go through this journey. You couldn't have done this, Jordan. You wish you would have done this 10 years ago. You couldn't do it 10 years ago because you were emptying your bank account every week to be in my mentorship. So you wouldn't have felt, you wouldn't have been able to ask other people, give me, run the most premium gym in town. Like, you have to go through these stages of development. And this is the fun part of the journey. And everyone listening in, everyone watching this is at different stages in the journey. I've been super, super poor. I lived on less than $10,000 a year for multiple years. I slept on floors. I lived on beans and tortillas. Like, I get it. Those who have no money, I've been there and lived there for a long time. When it changes for you, you think about it differently, and the world changes. So it's all about the frame of reference and the perspective that you're living from. And it's amazing to see you go through this journey, Jordan. I think, like, the work with Paul that we did, the year of Elite Money Club, you don't always know what's soaking in, but that's what's great about this environment as well, is like the paradigms are soaking in. You keep coming back to it. It's constant spaced repetition, and slowly but surely, like, the way that you look at the world, it changes. And then you're ready for that next conversation. You hear Alex Hormozy's message differently, or you go into a high-end, business coaching thing. but you arrive there as a different person, ready to receive that in a different way. So yeah, this is the fun part of there's so many levels that you can receive the messages of this event, but that's also the connect calls, meeting each other. Gradually your paradigm shifts, and the way that we're looking at the world and the way that we're living is so foreign to the average guy. Like, I'm sure you're feeling that with Legacy Dads, Jordan, like where you're speaking to a man who watches the footy, drinks a bunch of beer, and you're like, oh, that's how men are thinking. Like, it's such a different paradigm that they're living from. Like, they're not getting up each day and thinking, how do I make my life as good as I can? How do I make more money? How do I help more people? Like, they've literally never woken up and thought that. So yeah, this is the game, is to be able to see the world through other eyes. And the biggest thing is having these experiences that shift it. So there's a whole experience within that talk that you've just given there, Mr. Potts. And, we've been watching this journey since 2015, 16, maybe we had our first conversations, and, it took, I think we spoke maybe 2 years before you finally joined the program. And I think, Alex is probably in that boot. We spoke a few months back. He thought about connecting. He decided not to. It's similar to what the conversation maybe we had in 2015 or something. And it's step by step. You level up and life changes. I had a massive conversation with Franz 3 years ago. Now his life has changed dramatically through the steps that he's been through over the last few years. It's fun. We're all going through this journey. I'm now challenging myself to think more like Hormozi, and it's a huge paradigm shift. Like, it's brutal, the thing I'm going through at the moment, to study the EOS system and understand how to have an operating system for businesses of 20 plus employees. And I'm having conversations with men who have 40 employees about how they run their stuff. And it hurts my brain. And it hurts my brain to think the more I'm doing in the business, the less valuable the business is. Like, that's I've never thought about that. Like, I'm meant to not be in the business at all if the business is going to be valuable. And that's like completely foreign way of thinking. So we're always going to have these challenges in paradigm and shifting the way that we look at things. That's what we're here for. That's the fun. So yeah, I want to give you a massive thanks, Jordan, for delivering your business model here and how you're presenting what you're doing. And showing the simplicity that it can have. And, to some extent, I take it as a criticism, and it is a legit criticism of the businesses that I've built and the way that I've done things. Like, I do expose people to massive amounts of ideas and complexity, and I have a million ideas going on in my brain. Those who work on the staff know that there's like 8 ideas going into the ideas channel every day. That's how my brain works. And I've accepted that. Like, there's going to be chaos around me. I am chaos. I am like a fury that is very difficult for people to be around. But if you look at the outflow of that, there's, dozens of men who are doing something similar to what you're doing, Jordan. And I love the life that you're living and the direction that you're moving in. And I think it's my role to continue to be that chaos and to open up very different possibilities and expand network, expand ideas. At the same time, I'm still learning, and there's elements of simplicity that we're working towards with our team. And so I love that Sebastian Hilton and Sebastian Albrechtsen, who are working with me, they're on this call as well, and they're seeing like, oh, this is how simple it can be to have a $5,000 product. Your product is 3 months, it's $5,000, and it's probably less than 1% of the value that's in Uncommon Success if you were to do everything. But because yours is easier to do, you could easily make the case that it's higher value because the results are more consistent, the process is simpler. Is it going to churn out, what we're doing? Probably over time as well, because I see how you're going with it. So like, that's the fun of it. I want to see you doing better than me. Like, by 40, you're definitely going to be doing better than me. Like, and that's the game. That's the fun thing, is to each express our own best, express it in our own way, and learn from each other, be challenged by each other. So thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, Alex, for exposing, the way that your mind works currently. It's really valuable to see that as well.
Thanks for sharing, Jordan. Thanks, Keegan, for the thoughts. Good stuff.
Second that, brother. And Alex, just stay in the game. You got it, brother. Just keep punching away.
See, everything's easy. Everything's hard until it's easy.
100%. Thanks, lads. Really appreciate it. I'll yeah, if anyone wants to connect over Instagram, send me a DM. Super active there. I'm happy to have a chat, book in a call, whatever. Make sure you reach out. Thanks heaps. Thanks, Keegs, for the call.
We got to do a human design one, Mr. Potts, as well. I'm going to get Tyson and Chandler Jericho. They're like super deep in the human design, and Brian as well. We're going to do a chat with them, but I'd love you to jump in on that as well. We'll do it some stage during January. It'd be really cool. Most guys are resonating really strongly with what they're seeing with the human design things. You recommended that I get deeper into it a while back. My wife did. A bunch of people finally went into it more deeply recently, because the guy who recommended the operating system for business to solve the challenges of this current level that I'm at also recommended like the human design thing. So it's like, when you hear it, sometimes you have to hear it from a certain person at a certain time to be able to hear the call. But yeah, we'll do that again soon. Thank you, brother.
Awesome. Catch you later.
Champion.
Hey, bro.
Next up, we have Luke is going to be the next presenter. We are running a little bit behind the schedule there, but next hour is pro players presenting. Looking forward to these as well. Questions are welcome. Feedback is welcome. Again, we can look at this thing all through the lens of what information are they presenting, what can I learn there from a technical level, but then how are they presenting it? What is their business? What is their energy? All of that side of things is a huge part of the learnings of this process as well. So yeah, thanks for doing this for us, Luke. Over to you.
Yeah, I'll just hit the share. Oh. There we go. Can everyone see that all right?
No, it hasn't popped up yet.
No?
It would be good to hear some take-homes from the last presentation there as well, whether it was take-home on the business level or take-home on the product level, things that you want to apply for yourself, committing to that daily dance, committing to carnival for a month, animal base for a month.
I thought that was all really great, easy to manage and reproducible to get a business going. It speaks volumes to me for my age and where I live, and a concentration of people that fit that financial capability to participate in the program. So I'm definitely going to be reaching out to him. It's also really great in having something that simple and direct, as to not overcomplicate it. Just really, very, really great, because it hits the heartstrings and gets the job done. And that's, at the end of the day, what people want. So.
I think I'm up and running now. Has anyone got a screen now? Yep. So guys, what I thought I would just share, because it's in the pro player dashboard consultant area as well as an option if people want to connect with me and hear more about it, is just how I try to approach rehab, but then integrate that back into training. And I think it worked out well that Brian was on, and then a couple of things that Jordan touched on as well. But basically, I like the idea of a flywheel, where once we start to fill a bucket, it spills over into the next one, and then that fills and it spills into the next, and we just create a perpetual motion around the injured tissue. So the movement in question is the center of everything. So going back to Brian's examples from earlier, the floor-based postures as an example of, okay, this person in front of me is in pain in those positions or can't get to those positions. for whatever reason. So that's the starting point. That's what we're looking at. So we need to look at the posture of that position. Can they are they in the ideal, or is that why they're in pain? That they're close to it but not the ideal. The next question is, do they have the mobility to even get there? And Brian gave some good examples around the position of the feet or wedging the hips up or whatever the case is. So that might, if you've assessed that, that might be where you need to start your programming or whatever the case is. The output is a big one, I think, for a lot of people. Is the tissue in question strong enough to tolerate the worst case scenario for that movement? And then in a sporting sense, but in life too, we always need to look at the work capacity of the injured tissue. It's one thing to be able to do something once, but if we need to be able to do it over and over again, otherwise it's going to break again. And that's why, in my experience of observation in professional sport, you get these guys who are injury prone or whatever the case is, because it's easy to get rid of pain in someone. If you did nothing, pain will go away 9 times out of 10. But then if you just go back to doing things the same way that you always did, you'll get the same outcome and that tissue will break again. So at the moment, my focus is on baseball players. And so if I look at this movement of a pitcher at this position, when the front foot hits the ground, this is the movement and this is the posture. So hopefully it's not too blurry there, but we can sort of notice that the toes on both feet are pointed straight down the mound towards where the hitter is. We can see that his back hip is rotated forward, so much so that we can see the front of his belt. So that's at that point when his front foot hits the ground, his belt is facing the hitter. But actually as well, his chest and his shoulders are facing almost in the opposite direction. And in an ideal situation, they'd be 90 degrees there. There's a certain position that we want his arm to be, and then also the rotation of his head. So knowing all of those things gives us a clue into what might be going wrong. Why did this guy get injured, or why has he not responded to training or treatment or whatever the case is? So we can go through the posture, the mobility, the output, the capacity over and the effects on the movement, and we fill them up and they start to move into the next one, and then it fills the next one, and it fills the next one. And this is where, to me, there's too much distinction between corrective exercise and training. Like strength and conditioning or training or whatever you want to say should be just continued preparation for whatever the hell it is you're trying to do. So for this guy, it's throwing a baseball. So once we've made sure that his posture is ideal in this movement and he has the mobility to get there and he's strong enough to tolerate the forces that go on his body there, and he can do it enough times to play his sport, we don't stop. Like, people don't just reach a level of training and then stop, otherwise they get worse. So now we've got a checklist of things to keep an eye on them and make sure they stay healthy. So, right, let's check the posture again. Yep, that's still good. How's his mobility say? Yep, that's still good. Strength, yep, still good. Output, cool. So we just keep going and going and going. And if we monitor them correctly, we shouldn't, we reduce the risk of anyone getting hurt again way, 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 way down, because we're already on the front foot looking for the reasons that might be going wrong. And I just wanted to finish with a little bit of an example. So Ben Ruan came to see me at the clinic a little while ago. And I think Ben was a good example, and shoulders for me are a great example. Like, the shoulders are complicated. So you can see here, just at the scapula, the amount of different directions of muscle pull that can go on. So while range training and short to long and the ATEG philosophies and everything are fantastic, and they work most of the time, sometimes when you're dealing with an uncommon person, or if you're dealing with an elite athlete, they can hide. So, Ben had this nagging shoulder pain but like he was strong. He's stronger than the average guy in pull-ups, in pressing, in handstands, whatever. He had completely normal or above average mobility compared to the average person. He could get into all the positions he wanted to for his training, and he could do the sessions, but he was still hurt. So if we don't have a system to try and figure out, okay, well, for me, it's those buckets. Okay, well, which bucket is most likely to be affecting him? And then understanding, okay, let's look at the shoulder blade here and all the possible different directions. And then we can figure out, right, well, maybe on this one, we need to be training short range, but on this one, we need to be training long range. Or perhaps you've been doing too much short range training over here, which is not allowing you to get to long range. And that was the case for Ben, was his lats and his teres major were just pulling his shoulder blade down a little bit. So when he got up into his overhead positions, he was pinching and going from there. But because he had such above average mobility and strength, it wasn't stopping him. And so, yeah, I thought it was worthwhile trying to share this with guys of how I try to think about that, because they're the cases that I see a lot of in the clinic. And this is what I was always doing in professional sport was, okay, well, why did this happen? And how do we stop it happening again? And having a system, a training system or a training philosophy is fantastic, but sometimes it doesn't always work as expected. So you need to be able to go back and have another system in place to figure out, well, why didn't it work? Because, yes, I think being strong, being fit, being mobile, for some people, for the guys in this chat, they're not really, they're not accurate descriptions of why an injury might happen or why pain might happen, because you know, I couldn't say, oh, Ben's weak in this position. Ben's not weak. So I need a different way to describe what's going on for him. And then it's about function of everything as well. You know, I was having some messages back and forth with Jorge recently about a shoulder issue that he's having. And the point I was trying to make to him was that ultimately it doesn't matter if we know all of these things and we have our system of all these buckets to fill. If we go through them and go step by step through the system and know what we can and can't do, then we'll solve the problem anyway. So yeah, hopefully that just maybe cleared a few things up for some people as to why or what my my pro consultant sort of thing is, and how hopefully you can apply some of the training principles further into your injured populations or yourselves if and when they come across. So I'll stop that, and if anyone wants to go for questions or anything.
You explained, thank you, by the way, Luke. You explained how you have a lot of experience with this. I'm curious about your process of like arriving at this process, or like what goes into developing a system like this.
A lot of time, a lot of trial and error, a bit like what Jordan and Keegan were saying about the business side of it. So the general premise and those different buckets was something I learned off the biggest career mentor of mine when I was living in Canada. So that was his thought process about training and about healthcare. I sort of just came across and came up with the flywheel metaphor, actually from Keegan's dad. He recommended a book to me about some other stuff, and as I was reading it, I thought, oh, that makes sense. Like, that's how I'm sort of always trying to go through the rehab process, because that was my job in rugby, was rehab the guys and then keep them there. So I always had to have programs for all the uninjured guys But I had to have purpose to what am I writing these programs for? Like they're already doing weights, they're already doing fitness and all these other things. So what's the point of this program? And so it had to be, right, well, they're stiff here when they're trying to get into this position to make a tackle or to run or whatever the case is, or they've got history of hamstring tears. So there's still some residual weakness on their left side compared to their right, which is, again, it was, for a lot of them, it was above average for a human, but below average or not good enough for what they needed for their sport. And so, but that's what I like about that thought process now is it applies to anyone, because you just need to figure out what's the movement, or the lifestyle or whatever that the person is doing. If they're working construction, cool, that's in the center. What do they need to do in construction? They carry stuff up and down stairs, they squat down, they bend over and dig and twist and push a wheelbarrow, whatever it is. Okay, well, what's happening when they're bent over a pile of dirt and shoveling? Are they rounded through their back? Some of the things that Brian was talking about, can they stay in that neutral zone of stability? No, because they don't have the okay, why? Because they don't have the mobility through their thoracic spine, because when they go home they sit on their phone and do whatever. So okay, we need a program to improve the mobility there. Then once we've got that, now we also need to get them strong enough through their posterior chain so they can hang out over that pile and shovel and go. But we also need them to have rotational mobility, and we need them to be able to do 1,000 shovels in a day, 5 days a week, or whatever the case is. So that's the capacity. And in the general population, they're the things that Jordan was touching on. Like, so many people that work in physical jobs like that think they're in shape because they work a physical job, but actually they need to be in shape to do the physical job, because every day they get a little bit more tired, but the job doesn't change. And it is hard to try and train on top of that. And so I think, Jordan's on a great thing there to try and complement that. But yeah, does that answer what you meant, Garrett, about how it all evolved?
Yeah, it's a beautiful rundown. It's a summation of a lot of experience and then applying your specific knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, and that's what you're here for. You're specializing in this. You're a world leader in shoulders, Luke. You wanted to work at the highest level in the most demanding shoulder sport in the world. So, we always look at things through the lens of our own experiences. To Luke, the system that we have around shoulders is maybe overly simple, or didn't get the job done for Ben. I'm not surprised. Ben throws everything at himself and his shoulders, and he's snatching and he's pressing and he's doing everything. To be able to have a consult with the world leader around his shoulder, and I know that he got some significant improvement and understood what was going on. Like, that's Luke's superpower, and you shouldn't be surprised if 99% of trouble shoulders, you can see something simple and everyone else can't see anything. So yeah, that's the beauty of it as well. That's your gift, Luke, and that's the challenge, is to get that out to more people. Maybe you can make a springboard solution, like an entry-level shoulder product that can help fund and support your dream. I know that the plan is to get to the major leagues, but from the business perspective, you have so much to offer on this side. So it's good for you to reinforce that. And yeah, that is a resource that's available there in the marketplace, which we're starting to get more attention on now. Anthony's just made some upgrades in the formatting yesterday. So we want all players to have something there within the OnCall marketplace, and then we'll work on kind of making it clearer where people are at in the journey with that. Like, Luke has been working on this for over a decade, and he's a leader looking to work in the top organizations in the world as far as shoulders go. And not every offer in the marketplace needs to be like that. But yeah, that's something for Sebastian Hilton and Albrechtsen as well. As like, how do we differentiate that more clearly for those who are masters of their
desired area of value versus those who are looking to get started. And that's something that we need to add into the logic. But yeah, step by step. Thank you, Luke. Well done.
No worries. I'll address Alex's question in the chat so that can try and get everything as on time as possible.
Cool. Yeah. And you can, Alex, you can, guys who have shoulder stuff, you can definitely book in through the marketplace there as well.
Yeah. And guys, just on probably easiest to try if you send me Telegram messages and then we can figure out times, because I haven't got a lot of things open on the calendar link based on, Jordan's talk of at the moment, busy dad and whatnot. So, and I don't want me to take away from my kids. So yeah, if you want to catch up, shoot me messages and then we can sort of figure out times from there. But thanks for the opportunity, guys. Appreciate everyone listening.
Thank you. Garrett's up next. Welcome, Garrett. Looking forward to this. Over to you.
Okay, I appreciate your patience on that, figuring this out. Hey everyone, quick intro. My name's Garrett. I love God. Question for y'all, one or two in the chat, if you have grown any plants before. And my goal today, based on what Jordan's talking about, is making growing food as simple as possible. So I'm going to show you three things. We have chives, which are also called green onions. We have a standard onion. We have garlic. Chives are literally one of the easiest. These things you see right here are called roots. They're how the plant absorbs water, absorbs minerals and nutrients. Get a container with some water, put your chives in it. Boom, you're growing chives. Just like that. You're going to want to check on the water every now and then, smell it. Things like this, you can see how the skin's coming off of it. That will start to rot. So you're going to want to remove that from the water and change it out probably every day or two. But really, that's the basics. That's the beginning of growing chives. Onions. So you see this portion? It looks pretty similar, right, to what you just saw? These are roots. They're just dead. But if you get some dirt, and I put some dirt in a cup, put your onion in that dirt, apply some of that water to it, it's also going to start to grow. Literally like that. You could just have this on your countertop, as y'all can see here. This is just on the right button next to the stove. And if you want to grow like this, I recommend you do it in a place where everything's readily accessible, because calling back to the simplicity of it, we don't want it to be difficult. The idea, like so many people might think that you have to have this expansive garden or a raised bed or this immaculate soil, all these preparatory things to grow. And it's like, no, bro, you can have water and grow. And then garlic. So garlic's typically going to come in like a big bulb like this, but you can take individual bulbs out as well. So as you saw, I just removed that. And then if you can see the green coloration in here, it's starting to grow there. And same concept as the onion, you can get some dirt, put the garlic in the dirt, put some water in it. Boom. You're going garlic. And you can expect to see something start to like grow. In other words, the leaves, it'll kind of grow like this actually. And it'll start to look like that. That'll happen within 1 to 2 weeks typically. So again, the goal of this was just to give a very brief, easy to start introduction to growing plants. There are a plethora of ways that you can grow. It's not just that. You can grow inside, you can grow outside, you can grow different types of plants. But my goal is kind of like the ATG regression philosophy, in the sense of like, what's the easiest way that I can get you to grow plants and get started? And then when you see things growing, you'll get motivated and you'll want to grow more and more. And then there's a lot more in depth we can get into it in terms of like nutrient density in plants, and why is it that people that eat vegetables typically aren't very healthy? Well, it's actually because of like how they're grown. Like if you're doing an exercise wrong, you're going to injure yourself in a sense. And if you're not growing your plants properly, then you're not going to get a healthy plant. So that's my presentation. Thank y'all so much.
Garrett, I think you're going to have to do like a call like every 2 weeks, and then we can like find out what we have to do next, right? Like, because I'm thinking I plant my garlic, and then I get my green tops, and then what do I do next? So I think yeah, they're all my questions are more like yeah, what next, what next, what next. But maybe yeah, if you have like a group or something, that'd be really cool. We could grow things with you.
Yeah, that's the plan. Like, this is going to be a big year for me. I'm going to be launching a course. I'm going to be doing John Clayton's pro offer and Tyson's pro offer to get things formalized. And then the community aspect is really huge to me. And it's becoming very evident that we as creatures need community. So I want to have a community where we're not only growing plants together, but also growing together. So will definitely be keen to invite you to that, because it's something where, like, especially in repetition of exercise, like, you don't necessarily see the results right away, and plants are very similar in that sense. Like, you might not see anything happen for a week or two, and then all of a sudden you see something happening, and it's like super exciting and encouraging. So yeah, I'll be happy to include you in that, Alex. Thank you.
Sweet, thank you. Yeah, the other thing I'm thinking is that like, because I know that some plants have genders and some don't, right? So like some things you can just start growing and you're just going to have like infinite things, whereas some things they're actually like quite complicated. I mean, onions and garlic kind of in that simple category, maybe potatoes. Like what are the things that yeah, we have to apply this to other plants? Are there things that like are gendered that we should avoid or
Yeah, so the plants have sexual and asexual reproduction. So like what you just saw would be considered asexual because it's not coming from a seed, but each of those plants will also make seeds. And so that's what's kind of fascinating is some plants you can clone them or you can propagate them without them having to have flowered and make the seeds. So that it's kind of plant specific, but so these ones you saw, they were all asexual because, like I said, I want it to be as simple as possible. But also each of those can produce flowers that can get pollinated. And so that's where you get into different scenarios of how do I ensure that those flowers are pollinated. And some people do it manually, but generally nature, God does it best. He has all these different insects and methodologies of wind and other ways to spread the pollen. So yeah, great question, because it does get elaborate, and the goal is to start simply so that when we get to the elaborate, we've built up such a motivational train that it's just like one more exciting thing to learn about rather than some burdening, oppressive knowledge base that we're lacking.
very cool. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
You'd have to set this up as like a 12-month journey. Garlic's like 9 months or 12 months or something, isn't it? To grow it out.
Yeah, if you want to go from seed to clove, it can take quite a while, but a lot of people will do what's called overwintering it. Well, where they will plant it in the winter and then it's just kind of chilling there, maybe growing its roots, and then it'll pop up in the spring. And that, like, different cultures and different traditions grow things differently. And that's why the community aspect is so cool, because if you can get a lot of people in it trying different things, you're going to be able to build a database of like how people are growing and how successful it is, which is another exciting element to creating the community of growers.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what the progress that you're making with this, Garrett, and thinking about like how you can package this into what you do over a month. Yeah, like sort of a specific outcome, a specific amount of time commitment you need to invest. You know, like it's literally 2 minutes to set up that experiment, right? And even things you can do, like going along with Jordan's line of things, like father and son, or with your children. We've played around with this stuff a little bit with our children. It's good for them to see how plants work and that you can work with them. But yeah, guiding through like some fun stuff that father and son or your parents and children could do. Like these give you, if you have a specific outcome, specific time frame, that would be something that I think we would get some engagement through the Youngcom community with. But thanks for that today, and yeah, cool to see it progressing. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot today from Jordan's presentation, because having so many plants can grow in 3 or 4 months. And so if I can get someone to commit for that time, then at the end of it, they'll have that guaranteed result.
Yeah, and you just have to ask what the commitment, you have to be clear on what the commitment is, and then what the outcome's going to be, and then people can decide. It's going to take 2 minutes to set it up, and then you're going to be able to, like, you have to check the water each week, change the water each week. I don't know what you have to buy, materials, if you're going to have to put nutrients in the water or if it's going to go in the ground. But yeah, look, interesting as well, Garrett. I heard that you're a reflector type, which is 1% of the population is the reflector in the human design system. And they have special ability to see systems and see things and understand them and pass back feedback that the rest of the 99% don't see and can't give information on, which is really interesting. Brian was giving me the feedback on that, so it's cool, and I'm looking forward to having more of that data coming in from different groups and helping us to understand how we can help you most as well, and make use of your uniqueness for everybody, but for Garrett specifically, as there's likely to only be maybe one other in the network based on the probabilities. But yeah, conversation for another time, but looking forward to that as well.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's about unity and community. That's what it is for me. So I really appreciate all y'all being here and being willing to listen and share.
Legend. We've got the order of the next up. I know Andreas is on. Yeah, Sebastian Albrechtsen, and then Andreas. Welcome. Sebastian's over in the few kilometers away in the Mexico village. He joined Uncommon Success during the week after he finished high school, decided he wanted to come on this journey rather than taking the typical path into tertiary education. Came down to the Montenegro village and worked very hard on his football, planning to become a professional soccer player. And during the course of that couple of weeks, or just after, when he went back to Norway, he realized that the soccer player path isn't the path he wants to be following at the moment. So he came back to the Montenegro village and had a couple of months there in some intense time with Ljubo and developing the Montenegro village in its infancy. And then we were discussing what was next, and we went and visited Josh Whitlock, who does the sales with us with Uncommon Success in Croatia. And all of a sudden I heard, oh yeah, Sebastian's on his way to Mexico. So the plan was that he was going to be there for the February events or January event in the Montenegro village, but now he's in Mexico. And I was excited when I heard that he'd headed over this way. And so, yeah, we've been connecting again here in the village, and looking forward to hearing from Sebastian today. Maybe I took a bit of fun out of the story because you are going to talk about this, but it will be cool to hear your perspective. And yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I was going to speak on the villages and stuff, on village life. Hopefully you can see this. Yeah. So for the guys who don't know, I mean, Keegan kind of said it, but I've been to Montenegro now twice, the village, and spent about 3.5 months there, and I've been in Mexico now for a few weeks. I wanted to share a bit around how my experience has been around the villages and stuff, and my story through that as well. So pre-Uncom, I'm 19 right now as well. So pre-Uncom, like in my teens and stuff, I really struggled fitting in. I was kind of lonely, and it was a very confusing time for me. And yeah, around I've had like a very comfortable childhood and stuff with like quite wealthy parents and stuff, but like it was a very confusing time for me. And at 16, I got chronic low back pain, and that lasted for 2.5 years. Like it was every day in, day out, and it was a very hard time for me. And then like about 15 months from now, back 3rd or 4th of September 2022, I just decided to like change everything. So like I went from like that guy with like chronic back pain. I was addicted to video games. I was addicted to junk food, like porn, soda, everything, and I just quit everything overnight. So like that was like a Saturday, and then when I came back to school on the Monday, like I had just quit everything. So I'd like sold my PlayStation, just stopped eating junk food, soda, like stop porn and all of that stuff. And I really went on that like self-improvement journey, just like kind of confused. And so I decided that I was not going to go to university, but I was like what am I going to do now? I had no idea. It's like I went on that journey for like 9 months or so before I finished high school this year in June 2023. And I was like, what now? And what I was already quite decent at football, so or soccer, as some might call it. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do that. And then 1 week after graduation, I decided to join Uncom. I had a sales call with Keegan. It wasn't much of a sales call, to be honest. Like I'd already decided to join and that I was gonna try this out. Like I didn't really know what it was, but I just kind of like intuitively knew. I don't know how, but and then like a month or so after that, I decided to go to the Montenegro village, and that's the round one of Montenegro, and I met Keegan and you boys running the place, and the bongo, Sebastian Hilton and Andrea Dotta, and was some great connections, and that was just an incredible experience. And the things that changed in my head just from that month I spent there was really crazy. Like it really opened my mind to more traveling, and those connections there was incredible. And just the spiritual experiences that can be had at these villages is incredible. Like it's difficult to put it into words, but yeah, it's been a great journey. And at the time I was as Keegan was saying earlier, trying to become a professional footballer. So I was spending like 4 to 7 hours every day, like in the gym, practicing my skills. And so after a month there, I went back to Norway, and that was like yeah, really like hard experience. Like I had like crazy brain fog, and I really think like the change environment from being in Montenegro to being at home living with my parents again was really rough. The month I'd spent in Montenegro was probably the best month in my life at that point. And yeah, something just didn't feel right. I was getting back. I was back to playing football from my back injury and stuff, and something didn't feel right. So I really just followed my intuition, and then I went back to Montenegro like 3 weeks after like going back from there. And I didn't really have any plan of how to make money or how to really get to the next location. But I went there and I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna go to Mexico next. I'm gonna travel the world next couple of years. And I think pretty much everyone thought I was kind of crazy for saying that. Probably even Keegan, and thought it was a bit weird. But yeah, I really believed in myself, and I knew it was gonna happen. So I went back to Montenegro for round two. I spent about 2.5 months there. I think I met 12 people from Uncom. We were 10 people at the same time at some point as well. Like you can see at the table here eating food, we were 10 people there around the table from Uncom, and again, it was just an incredible experience. I had some times there where it was just me and Yubo, and just like great conversations, like spiritually every day, and just like a very big like growing experience for me. Just another great experience, and obviously challenging as well with like adapting to the culture, and I started working with Uncom at this time as well, and that's been a challenge for me, and just lots of growing in that, and I'm super happy that I've had that opportunity. So that was 2.5 months again. And then I decided to go in. So it was, I think, the 5th of December. So like 3 weeks ago, I decided to go to Mexico. And this is like, I was like planning on traveling around Europe the whole of December, just like randomly, like all over the place. And so I was staying at Josh Whitlock's place in Croatia, which is quite close to Montenegro. So I went from Montenegro to there, and I'd booked in a plane to go to Amsterdam, like 5 days later or something. And then I was chatting with Joshua, and I was like, yeah, I want to go to Mexico. And then he told me like, just do it, like just go. And then I called up Daniel and Bongo, who's like the co-owner here at the village, and I told him like, can I just come to Mexico? And I was like, yeah. And then I looked at the planes, and the cheapest one was 12 hours later. So then I decided to go with 90 euros in my bank account, decided to go to Mexico. And yeah, here I am. And again, like following my intuition there, and just going for it. It's just been incredible. Like now I've had a lot of great connections here and great times, and just been growing on that as well. Like the environment of these villages is so incredible, and there's so much to grow upon it. And it's difficult to put these experiences into words, but like I think Keegan was putting in the chat the other day, like village life is better. And I think that's like the easiest and simplest way to put it. Like village life is just better. Like life is so good, and it's just so easy to grow and learn. And like if anyone's considering going to any of the villages and isn't really taking the step forward on that, like I'd just say just do it. Like it's so incredible, these places and the experiences we have here, and I'm super grateful that Keegan's been building this, and that like we can have these experiences now. It's super cool. And then for the future for me, I'm gonna be traveling around the world. Like I wasn't even thinking about that before the first time I went to Montenegro, but it really made me think. And yeah, it's really something I want to do, be able to see different cultures and have different experiences and meet new people. And then I'm working with Oncom now, so I'm gonna be keeping moving forward with that and see where that can take me. I'm really happy to be able to provide value with that project as well. And the ultimate mission, like the thing that I'm really moving towards in my head, is like educating young men, like helping young men find purpose. And it's really the problem that's like in my heart. So yeah, that's my presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, this a lot of this is really why Uncom existed, because I think I felt quite similar through high school and after high school. And yeah, it's cool. It really is like why it exists, is to have these experiences earlier in life than what I did, and to make them better, more constructive. Anyone have anything they want to share? It's a different way to be able to go travel the world. I would recommend to anyone go travel the world. The ability to meet uncommon men along the path is very excited for it. I'm in discussions with Nico about a big important next development with Uncom and Bali Time Chamber as well. So hopefully we'll have some news around that in the next couple of days. Daniel's just taken himself over to Portugal. Andreas did this a year ago as well. Andreas is up next. He's taken a similar journey, and I think he's become a better version of himself and had some new experiences as a result of that. Sebastian Hilton also spent a bunch of time in the villages in the last 6 months and joined our team with Uncom as well. Yeah, Odna and Seb had some time together in Montenegro village. Yeah, the hero's journey, you have to travel. There's a version of Jesus's story where he traveled a lot as a youth as well. In the years that aren't in the Bible, I don't think you can become anything close to as good as you can be without going and experiencing different languages, different cultures, different ways of living. It's not enough just to travel in the Anglo countries. You have to get fully out of your comfort zone and get into other language groups, get into other experiences. And it's being homogenized as well. This is one of the things that is less than ideal, that we're all becoming, a bit more than we should of one culture. But yeah, there's still great diversity out in the world, and it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, thanks Seb for being adventurous and being one of the first to do this as a young man under 20, getting out and seeing the world. Look forward to others taking the journey. Clearly, the online income thing is a big part of that as well. To be able to fund yourself to do that is one of the goals of the program. But yeah, there are more and more possibilities going to come with that. So thanks for sharing. Well done. More to come. Wesley's about to potentially take a similar journey. We've had Jake is over in Vanuatu at the moment. So yeah, it's starting to happen at scale, this adventure for young men. And where these men are 5 years from now is going to be very interesting relative to going and sitting in university for 5 years. Andreas, over to you. Welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll just quickly add about the village experiences. I agree with everything Sebastian said. It's you can't really predict what experience you'll gain out of it, because I did the villages, but as well as some solo travel, and you learn so much through a lot of ups and downs, and you just can't predict what it'll be like. I think I had a sort of fairy tale idea of what traveling would be, and then you find yourself in a lot of tough situations. You're lonely, you're confused, you're excited, you're potentially depressed. It's a lot of ups and downs, but you learn so quickly. That year, it was like 10 months of travel, felt like 2 or 3 years. Like when I looked at the end of the travel towards the beginning, it felt like multiple years. So yeah, can only agree with everything that was said. Cool. Let me see if I can share. All right, can you guys see presentation? Yep, sweet. So this presentation is about 10xing your Instagram in 2024. So before I get into,
see if you hit your slideshow, and if so we don't see the whole background and your tabs.
Oh yeah. Where is it?
It's over on
Where
the
do
right.
I hit? Oh, the right. Okay, cool. All right. So before I get into the actual details of how to do this, I want to say that the answers are not sexy. It's not going to be some secret hook or some secret way that you film something that is going to guarantee any sort of result. I hear a lot of, you could call them excuses or just like blocks, mental blocks. We all have them. Like getting a new camera is going to improve something, or getting a new mic, or any sort of these things. Like they're not going to actually get you the result. And I love this quote by Thomas Jefferson. I'm a great believer in luck, and I find that the harder I work, the more I have of it. I think the growth that I'll show you on the next slide that my page got is a lot of luck, but the luck only came because of persistence, consistency, trying to improve something every single reel, trying to provide more value or more entertainment in some cases in every single reel. I think there we go. So yeah, the growth I recently had in the past month was pretty crazy. It was honestly keeping me up at night. Just like I'd wake up at 2 in the morning and like check what the growth was at, and it was very, very exciting. And it came from massive, massive consistency as well as authenticity. I feel like this was the first time in all of me being on social media that I was actually sharing my full authentic truth. I had made a lot of content in the past around training, and only in recent few months or maybe about a year, I've realized that I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a coach. There's a big difference between liking training and being a coach, being a trainer. So I was making a lot of training content in the past, but in retrospect, it wasn't really my authentic self. My authentic self talks about food, talks about travel. Sure, it talks about training a little bit as well, but fully sharing who I was authentically was a big, big, big shift. And the big benefit of being authentic is it prevents burnout in my experience. When you're sharing your truth, it's fun, it's exciting, you get better feedback. People can tell that you're being truthful through the camera. So if you're thinking about creating content, the more authentic you can be, the less likely it'll be that you'll burn out, in my experience. So the three big ideas that I want to cover in order are consistency, authenticity, and skill acquisition. And I'll explain why I believe that's the order you should attack social media in. So first off, with consistency, clearly without consistency, nothing will happen. Nothing really matters. You could post the greatest reel. Imagine if Ben Patrick posted his best performing reel, but that was the only reel he posted for the month. And then a month later, he did a tibialis video. And then a month later, he did, whatever. He probably wouldn't get to where he is now at that rate. You need to implement the right tactics for long enough, with enough consistency and with enough improvement from time to time to actually see any potential results. Now, those results could come in a month, they could come in 3 months, they could come in 6 months. There's a lot of factors that maybe are a little bit out of our control, but whatever it is, the more authentic you can stick to that consistency, the better off you'll be. Here's just a couple, cut off a little bit, but here's just a couple examples of some different consistency sort of volumes to shoot for. I think at a bare minimum, once per week. Anything less than that, and I would try to evaluate why you can't do more than one per week, or why you can't do one per week, and then up to like 5 to 7 per week is definitely possible if you get the technical skills down. So yeah. So authenticity. Number 2 is authenticity, because if the consistency is there, even if the authenticity isn't, you can still gain some traction. For the longest time, probably a year and a half or so ago, I was basically just copying Ben Patrick's videos, which in retrospect, I wasn't really providing any value, but it was a lot of learning going on, both on the editing side, the speaking to the camera, filming, just all sorts of technical skills were being gained because I was consistent, but I wasn't being authentic. So there is still some value in being consistent and not authentic. And with that being said, like copying is a tool. So I don't want you to think that authenticity means every word you put out needs to be 100% original. We're all copying someone to some degree. I was copying Ben Patrick's font and like speaking style. I was trying to speak in like the same sort of fluid way he can speak. But you do want to inject that level of authenticity with your story and your experience. I worked with guys recently that have just incredible. I mean, Harrison has an incredible story of losing 100 pounds in his teens. And what I kept telling him is like, you're probably like one in a million of a teenager who had 100 pounds to lose and lost the 100 pounds and kept it off and is now a coach. Like there aren't that many people in the world that can say that. And there are tens of thousands of men that need help in a similar situation he was in. So him sharing that story is like the highest leverage thing he can do, but it's also the most authentic thing he can do. Like if he were to just put out tibialis raise videos, like there's nothing special. There's thousands of people just putting out another tibialis raise video. But if he shares a story about the struggles he went through and like the benefits he received on the other side of losing that 100 pounds, that's going to be his most authentic self. And then lastly to these three is skill acquisition. Now, a lot of times, myself included, we kind of invert this scale. We think that we need to edit better. We need to have better captions, better lighting, better camera, better hooks. These are all important, but they come last, in my opinion, to consistency and authenticity. If you nail those first two, these will come naturally. I 100% guarantee it. Like if you force yourself to put one reel out per day, no matter how garbage you think it is, by the time you get to reel 50, you'll have all of these locked down. You'll edit 10 times faster. Your captions will be better. Your filming will be better. So if you solely focus on consistency and then authenticity, these will all come naturally. And these are all what I was calling technical skills earlier. So you do all these three things, like what does that afford you? The biggest thing for me is it affords you to be limited by ideas and not your technical ability. Imagine if all of you guys could share your knowledge without being limited by not knowing where to set up the camera, fumbling around with the tripod, not knowing what CapCut was. Like if every little idea that goes on in your head that could potentially be world changing, and I think we all have world changing ideas, if those can be shared with the only limitation is the idea and the ability to hit record and just send it. I mean, we can do a lot of things, both in a business sense, but also in a world-changing sense. And of course, on a more technical note, like it'll grow your audience, which can generate more leads. And even if you don't have an offer, and this is what Scar Performance, Matt Scar did, he grew an audience to 140,000 before having any form of an online offer. But then when he gets there, like he can put out an offer and he's going to get sales. So even if you're still in that stage of like, I don't really know what value I have to provide or who I'm providing it to or any form of an online offer, it won't hurt to grow an audience. That's kind of where my page is right now with the food and raw food related stuff. I have nothing to sell people, at least right now with that. But I now have 11,000 people that are willing to listen to my opinions, listen to what I have to say. So if and when I have an offer that helps people cook, that informs people about the benefits of raw food, I have 11,000 people that I didn't previously have that are willing to listen and potentially buy. And the last thing this affords you, it's genuinely fun. If you do it consistently, you do it authentically, and you gain those skills along the way, it's incredibly, incredibly fun. When you're not being authentic, it's not as fun, but there is a lot of fun involved in this. And yeah, I don't know how long that was at all, but any questions? And I would happy to answer anything regarding content creation.
I just want to shout you out for being a awesome teacher. You did I think 30-minute or hour-long workshop, and then the timing of it was perfect because Luke Carter did his 21-day content challenge. And if someone were to go through my reels and look at them, they can see that like there was an increase of quality testifying exactly to what you're saying here.
Yeah, that was huge. I saw that you were like adding a lot more captions and the just seemed like you were speaking your truth more as well, whether it was like Bible verses or anything biblical. And I think it really shines through. And there's a lot of people that want that sort of stuff. So it was awesome to see.
Questions about Reels, guys, content, social media. This is a huge part of your potential to make money, make an impact on the world. Right now, this free opportunity didn't exist when I was a young man. There was no possibility to get in front of thousands, hundreds of people. Even if you're reaching 100 people, that's huge. You couldn't do that 10 years ago. Like, you don't understand the richness. You could 10 years ago, but you couldn't 20 years ago. You used to have to advertise in the newspaper. Like, it was a completely different world. This opportunity it's so easy to make money right now. It's so easy to change lives for better. Like, the world needs to improve very rapidly, and this is the way that we get it done. So, what are your questions? What are your barriers? How do we level from this?
I got a question. Andres, I was wondering if you could talk about I guess, kind of what Keegan's talking about, the barriers, more so in terms of perspective, because I know you've probably seen in me, I have a lot of resistance with social media stuff. And, I've made every excuse in the book why I'm not at the legendary status like you're talking about, posting every day. Personally, I know I've had like the whole, I think I heard Keegan say it once, like, if you don't have an offer, then you shouldn't even be on social media. That was kind of just one way of looking at it. So sometimes I felt like if I'm on there and I'm not building an actual product in the back end, it's kind of a waste of time. But yeah, just your thoughts on limiting perspectives on actually getting a groove going with the social media stuff.
Yeah, so real quick with the last thing you said, I think I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but it's not as optimal of a use of time. It's still good, but if you do have some sort of a cheap offer, like in your case with the Notion productivity thing, if you had a $10 offer there that people can just buy, click and buy, that's a better position to be in than not having it and growing the audience. And then more so like limiting beliefs and the perspective thing, something Max and I have talked about a lot here in person is this need to box yourself in early. I think there's value in boxing yourself in, if that's the term we can use, as you progress. But in the early days, like you're not going to know what's going to hit or not. Like, I had no way of knowing which one of my reels were going to pop off, both based on how I edited them and what the topic was. I was kind of two somewhat different topics. I was talking about eating raw chicken and I was making healthy ice creams. And the audience doesn't really cross over too much, but doing both kind of just casted a bit more of a wider net. But both of them were authentic to who I am and what I'm interested in. So if you're kind of being limited by like, what is my brand? Like, I know Max, he's kind of looking more on the productivity side, mobility, sort of body, physical health side. And then there's maybe also like the psychology thing, which is maybe a bit in the middle. Like, for you, being consistent and not really knowing what you're sticking to is probably the best position you can be in. Just create what feels most natural to you and something will hit. You'll put out 20 reels, 3 of the 20 will do significantly better, and you analyze what those were, and then you can follow that path and just keep course correcting along the way. Like, you're not going to be in a bad position by putting out 20 reels. I mean, you'll be in a great position. So regardless of what the topics are, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I've taken the most from watching you grow too, is, and obviously we've talked about this a lot, but yeah, just the authenticity. I feel like if I just sat down and wrote out like, what are 25 of the most impactful ideas that have changed my life or helped me, and I just made content about that, like, that's obviously going to start reaching a more authentic crowd. Yeah, thanks. It helps.
Yeah. Then one thing I'll add to that too is I think Max and I were in a bit more of a position of having too many ideas. We like want to do such different things, but some people are on the opposite end. Like, they feel like they don't have enough ideas. Like, maybe they are like, I don't know, super niched in, who knows, maybe they're just a foot specialist, healing people's feet and ankles. That seems so narrow. If you are in that position, you can also just repeat the same content over and over again. If you look through all of Ben Patrick's content, how many times has he made a tibialis raise video? or a split squat video or a reverse sled video. He has like a core small set of topics that he can just rinse and repeat basically the same idea in new words and new filming over and over and over again. So if you're kind of in a bit of a narrow box, like, okay, there's only really 5 topics that are important, great. Like, do those 5 videos over and over and over again. Because realistically, not every single one of your followers is going to see every iteration of the video. And even if they do, Ben Patrick, again, as an example, people still like his tibialis videos because they like to get the idea that tib raises are good for you reinforced over and over and over again. No one gets upset because Ben is talking about tibs again. If anything, they get excited because they're just like, oh, that's the thing that I should be doing. And then they might rip out some tib raises. So yeah, if you're on that end of the spectrum, like it's not a bad position to be in. You can just rinse and repeat the same ideas.
The thing of telling people not to do social media if they don't have an offer yet, that's based on the goal of, I want to make money. If your goal is to make money now, then don't do social media unless you have a product. If your goal is to make money 10 years from now, 5 years from now, and you've got a big vision for yourself, then sure, like build your brand. I built my brand for 5 years before I had a product. I was working full-time in rugby. While I was doing that, I was blogging, I was tweeting. And when I had an offer, I had an audience there ready to buy it. So it depends on the goals, right? Like you don't want to take the message in isolation. The message of don't do social media unless you've got a product is, if you want to make money right now, focus on having something to offer that is of value and prove that, and then focus on having people put their eyes on that thing. And yeah, there's nuance to it depends on the context. But yeah, for you, Max, I think what you're discussing there, Andreas as well, don't worry about the niche. Like, you are the niche. Live well. That's what people buy. If you're living well, people will be interested in what you're doing. You've managed to get yourself out of Chicago to be able to live in Florida, to be able to live with a bunch of cool guys, to get yourself out of a mental state that you didn't want to be in into more consistently in a state that you do want to be in. That's your product. Like, you are the product, and then everything that you're interested in is what you can offer to other people. So about psychology themselves, about Notion, about building networks, about taking on different mind frames and challenging, looking at how other people see the world and testing them out. Like, you're doing that at the moment. You did that with Paul's stuff. You're doing that with systems in Florida at the moment. So, like, thinking of yourself as the product. This is like for you, Wesley, as well, as like a young man, is like, live well and show that you're living well. Odna as well. Like, it's not just about your soccer skills. It's like, I live in this way. These are the things I do each day. And if you're inspirational in that, even the kind of music that you like, and the kind of, if you're into art, or if you're into whatever else you're into, like, these are key aspects of your brand. Initially, Ben Patrick branded quite a lot around his dog. That was a key part of like humanizing his journey on the way through. So he had like 5 different things that he would post, and one of them was about his dog. And so even if you think, okay, my product is Notion, the reason people are going to buy the Notion is because they like you and they see you're living well. And like, we can all see Max's arms are slowly getting bigger, and he's making progress with his training. Like, this is what people buy into. It's like, okay, yeah, Max has got momentum. Max keeps getting better. I want to be more like Max. What does he have to offer? And so, yeah, everything that you're doing, like, nothing is ever wasted. It all becomes part of what you can offer. And especially if you're offering one-to-one, then it's literally like, let's, okay, you want to live better? Cool. We're going to organize your Notion. We're going to get you reading these books about psychology of the self, like all the stuff that's helped me change my life. This is what we're going to do. You're going to come and experience a week living in Florida, so you can experience this whole different energy of what life can be. And that's a great product. And it's really simple. And then your job just becomes to showcase that you're living well and continue to live well. Like, that's ultimately what it becomes. And that's what I'm selling. Like, I'm living to my values, and people can see that I'm living to my values, and they can either opt in to become more like that, or have an increased probability of being like that, or not, and it's, this is the simplest way to look at it. You either do group or you do one-to-one, and people are buying into living like you. Sebastian Kovacs, put this into words well. He's going to be presenting again. Justin came down to the event. Andreas and Max were at that event as well. But
you're literally monetizing living well, and you're making living well your profession. Justin, you want to share some thoughts on that as well?
Yeah. So I've talked a little bit about working with Andreas on a couple uncom calls, as well as talking with Max a little bit about his situation. And I would say from my perspective on social media, the biggest barrier for me was just that whole setup. Like, oh, my lighting is off. Oh, I got to set up my camera and this, that. And like thinking too much about, should I say this in the video? Should I say that? And it was all like just overly stressing about the dumb stuff that Andreas was mentioning in the slideshow. And as soon as I just got somebody to record and got somebody to edit, the ideas started flowing. But and I was just able to, like, you know, bring more of like Justin Mucci instead of like, you know, I watch Ben Patrick and I do a video, which is fine in the beginning, right? But again, like, you got to bring out something for people to attract only you. So I talked to Max, and I think, like, I was just thinking about a few ideas that I would say. Yeah, we got to lock in Garrett, always locked in. But yeah, a few things for Max. I think that the brand is you 100%, but I also think that every conversation or every sort of idea that pops into your head about what you think you would want on your social media, write about it. Always write about it. Whatever, whether it be in your notes, whether it be on a piece of paper, whatever it is. And then as soon as you have that camera in front of you, you kind of already have ideas and you can already just start the conversation. Sort of like, to be honest now, like, all I do is just have a conversation with the camera. And during my conversation, I like to show movements and sort of explain exercises like I'm talking to an athlete, right? And I just picture thousands in front of me. I just constantly picture thousands in front of me instead of it's just me and the camera guy. And I'm thinking, how do I get the message that, like, is, I guess, the problem that I want to solve in my head to so many people, but they also understand it. And so I think that writing stuff down, writing topics, and then thinking you have thousands in front of you, right? And you sort of just have a big conversation with people with the camera. I think that's changed my perspective. And now, you know, woke up this morning, grew to, I don't know, maybe like 300-400 followers overnight, just because we're working with Andrea, staying consistent, just posting, you know, some good reels and growing the brand. And I would just say, just get into it and keeping ideas flowing in your head. It's easy to stay like stagnant once you like, oh yeah, I got one video done, and it's like, that's gonna hit, no question. Like, it's not gonna hit. Don't think that. Stay humble. Continue flowing with the ideas. And if you see what works, you know, restructure it. So that's just a few things on my mind right now.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that, because for Justin, he said like maybe a obstacle or bottleneck was the camera or the filming, and then he got a guy to do that, and then he got me to do the editing. So whether you have the, you know, income to outsource it to other people, or you do it yourself, once you get rid of the technical skills as your bottleneck, now you're in a position like Justin where he can just stand in front of the camera. I mean, I got like a bunch of footage from Justin yesterday. I think he like ripped 8 or 10 reels in one go, just like 8 folders all with all the footage. Like, that's what it can afford you, again, whether you do it yourself or you outsource it out. And then there's a question in the chat from Alex about using a teleprompter or precise script. So just my own opinion on using teleprompters. I've never used one, but I'm glad I've never used one, because I feel like over time it would almost become a crutch where you need a teleprompter. I'm sure there are very successful creators that consistently use teleprompters, but if you can learn to not use it, you can either memorize scripts if that's the route you want to go, or you can do something more like Justin, where he's just in front of the camera and he's just going, like, in 3 minutes, he finishes a reel that gets cropped down to like 40 seconds. So that's just my opinion on teleprompters.
Yeah. One last thing. Like, I got to be honest. now that I'm home and I'm like around, I guess younger guys, like my siblings and everything, you notice that nobody really cares like how you say it. They're just scrolling. Like everybody's just scrolling, and you just got to say something that pops. And then if you sound educated, if you sound, you know, like you're actually bringing value, right? So don't. I was so conscious about like, if I say it this way, it's going to be wrong, and then somebody in ATG is going to be like, you said it wrong. I'm like, who cares? Like, just get the message across that you have in your head that you think could fit or make sense in other people's minds, right? And constantly think about, you have thousands looking, you have thousands looking, you have thousands looking, right? And then if you say it a different way and you're like, okay, well, let me see what I said. Okay, let me say it a different way, and just say it a few different ways, right? And then look over all of them and see what works. So don't be so conscious of like, okay, let me hit this, let me hit record, say it, go back. I don't like it. Now I'm stagnant, right? Just kind of get a roll of it. Like I kind of sucked for, you know, maybe 50 to 100 videos. But again, like Andres is saying, like the more consistent you are, after 50 videos, you're going to be like, all right, you know, I'm giving a speech right now. How do I make people listen and stay engaged and not wander off and look somewhere else and sort of just scroll past? So.
Yeah. And I know I've had resistance in the past too to like this sort of low attention span short form stuff where you don't want to just become another guy who's like saying clickbaity hooks or whatnot. But the one thing that changed my perspective on that is if we can view the global, like everyone's attention as currency. And if we're trying to make a positive impact in the world by shifting some of that attention from going to mindless, degenerate activities to positive activities, whether that's growing food, training, nutrition, psychology, mobility, whatever, then you shouldn't feel bad about making sort of maybe clickbaity hooks or all these hook styles that basically every famous creator is using, because you're deviating a bit of that attention currency to a positive impact in the world. So even if you're a bit cringe, it's a bit, feels a bit unnatural to speak in these sort of clickbaity or hook styles. Not that you should purposefully not be authentic, but you are making a positive impact by shifting some of that attention to a positive activity or topic. So, yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate everyone watching and all the questions and listening in. It's been fun.
Gotta stay locked in.
You should
locked in.
That's catching hard merch as well. You're getting people fired up. It's good. And I love that thing of speaking like you're speaking to thousands. I asked you, like, are you talking to someone or what's going on there? Because you can feel there's a different energy in the way that you're doing your audios. What was your following before you started working with Andres?
I think it was 2,700.
Yeah, 2,700. It's been like 2 weeks, and now I'm at like 3,100. So, growing fast. But
it's fun it's fun to see the growth as well, right? Like if you've had a period of stagnation, it's energizing for all aspects of business, not just like social, but you have more optimism for the future if you know there's new eyes coming in, there's new energy, there's fresh comments, there's fresh people opting into like lead offers and that sort of stuff. So it has a flow-on effect. It's not just about the numbers. I think as well, like your whole psychology around business shifts.
Yeah. I think the huge, like you're talking about who I'm speaking to. I think the biggest factor for me is that I have like constant conversations. Like when I don't script anymore. There's no script. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Like I'm just talking, right? But I have constant conversations with people like my family or my friends, and they're like, "Oh, I got knee pain. Mooch, help me." Whatever it is, like whatever. Like I just have those conversations, and then as soon as the camera's on, I'm like, "Okay, they don't know anything. I think I know everything. How do I get it to a simple level where they're like, okay, let me like Garrett was saying earlier about the plants. Just like, how do I get it to a simple level? Like, I know everything about the plants. I know everything about growing, plants. How do I get it to a simple level where it's like, does this make sense? Stop sitting on your ass, go do something. Kind of just very simple in the videos. But yeah, I just kind of like constantly remember that someone is at a very, very basic level and they think they can't do anything and they think they're gonna have pain in some area forever. So I gotta that's the same thing with Ben Patrick in the Tibia House race. He constantly has to remind people because he's constantly thinking about the person that knows nothing. So it's easy for him to recreate the video because he's talking to people that are still like way, way low. They don't know anything about ATG. So
love it. Yeah, we're going to do a 25-day challenge to kick off 2024. Andreas has put this together. I'm not sure how many places there are, but he's put together a process around that. I'm in for it for sure. I'm going to have a go at posting every day for the next year is the plan. Andreas and I haven't fully locked in if we're going to be able to execute on that, but I think we can. And he's making that available. It's going to be $500, but it's going to be $100 plus Uncom. You can pay the rest in Uncom tokens for guys who are in the pro game. I think it's a really good opportunity for us to get some energy going around that. And the collaborative possibilities are something we haven't tapped into yet within Uncom. Commenting on each other's stuff, sharing to stories, but then also like doing the collaborative reels. I'm going to do a reel with Mucci in the early 2024. I'm going to do one with Fabian Loic. Early 2024, like these things have explosive potential when you start to really tap into like a French audience or a ballet audience or something else. I've just had a little bit of interaction with Shane from Ballet Strength. Like it's super, super powerful when you start to cross niches and cross countries and like Facebook loves it. Like the Instagram loves it when it sees you popping in other countries. So yeah, this is an opportunity to start 2024 strong. If you need to get more Uncom tokens, then you can get T-Fuel through us. If you're having trouble getting T-Fuel and you want to buy some Uncom tokens, we can help you out with that to make it easier. Obviously, we want you to earn the tokens, and you can earn the tokens by playing the game, but we realize, not everyone has them yet. And so the tokens are much more affordable than paying just straight up 500 in fiat at the moment. Other feedback there, the thing of like commenting on other people's stuff and all the gimmicky shit, like you don't need to do any of that. You don't need to go comment on other people's stuff to try and gain new followers. For sure it can work, and I think on Twitter maybe it works to some extent, but it's such a weak thing. Like just make good content, like solve stuff and put good content out, and especially get some network effect around your stuff. Have other people that give a shit that you exist is really the goal. And it's brutal, but it's true. Like if no one comments on your stuff, if no one likes your stuff, if no one's sharing it to stories, like it didn't help anyone. And that's the feedback, and it's good feedback to get. And if it's brutal, it's brutal. If it's positive, it's positive. That's really where we want to get with this. You don't have to do anything gimmicky. Your content doesn't have to be anything that's against your values, or you don't have to do super hardcore edits. Like I worked with hardcore editors at different times in 2023. It doesn't work for me. It makes my content do significantly worse. Like Andreas does this nice, simple, clean edit that showcases the knowledge. And that's I think the style that we should be going for, not fancier and fancier, flashy, transitions and all those sorts of things. So yeah, the algorithm right now, I think, is really honest. Like if your content is good, you will grow. I think there has been times in the past where if you're a certain ideology, then your stuff doesn't go forward. There were times with, during the COVID times, etc., that didn't matter what you posted, didn't matter how good it was. If you weren't in favor, then you wouldn't grow. But I don't think that's the case at the moment. If you look at the different kinds of accounts that are growing, I think it's really on merit right now, and that means there's a great opportunity. I don't know if they're going to keep the algorithm like that, but right now I think it's very easy to, and you should be bringing those people into your email list, and that's why it's important to have a springboard solution, something that people can jump into for free or for a few dollars, that's getting your email list growing as well.
But yeah, I'm super keen to get this more collaborative approach going. IG lives, podcasts, like we haven't tapped into this yet with Uncommon Success. We did it with Real Movement in 2020, and Ben Patrick, Range of Strength, even Nico's stuff, it all exploded when we started to get more collaborative about things. There's a lot of different energies, a lot of things going on, but this is a role that Andreas can help us to do this, to facilitate that connection. And Andreas is looking to build a bigger team of editors as well. Like if you would like to get into editing and be able to do simple edits, those who are on live, those who are listening back to the recording, like you can learn this skill that Andreas has. And if you can think about it from a content creator's perspective rather than an editor perspective, then you will win. All the editors out there who are like, yeah, I can cut your shit together, it's fucking useless. You need someone who can really think about content, who can think about the audience, who understands the topic area. And so that's the advantage that you have. If you want to edit reels, but you really want to understand content and learn about content, the psychology of successful content, then there's an opportunity for that as well with Andreas at the moment. So as that team grows, it's going to be exciting too, to be able to have, like, the dream is that there's hundreds of us producing great content each day. And in the back end of it, there's a web that lets it all link together. Like imagine how powerful that is when there's 1,000 pro players and hundreds of us have opted in to be collaborative in the back end of all being on each other's stuff. Like, you don't understand the explosiveness of the growth that can come from that. If everyone, with hundreds of people putting effort into it, all different niches, all different audiences, all different countries, multiple languages, this is what's going to happen in 2024. So I would love for you to opt in on that and start to build that. I'm about to take another ballet challenge with Shane. Shane's got 80,000 followers, I think. I'm super excited to learn ballet. Like it's literally like, I love taking on new physical challenges, and it's that arm challenge that we did was really tough for me. Garrett did it within a few hours with his Tai Chi background. And that was an eye opener for me as well, of like, okay, there's things there with Tai Chi that I haven't tapped into. It's going to be so beautiful. If you want to be the one guy who's super specific on something, then lead us in that and go super specific. If you're the throwing guy, Luke, like get us all throwing better. I'm up for throwing better. How do we do that? But if you want to experiment and be the experimental guy, which Alex Donahue wants to be, is like, I'll run the experiment of sitting on the floor for 25 days, like Brian Michelson is putting forth, and then he'll create content around what it's like to sit for 25 days and work from the floor and then comment on that. Like that's great content as well. And Andreas is the one who can help to showcase that in a way that it is going to grow for Alex. And then that has a benefit for Brian. And then Brian's building a village in Africa, potentially in Zambia. Super exciting. Like farmland is really accessible. It's one of the safest countries in Africa. Like it has all these flow-on effects, man, that it's not just some social media gimmick. Like this is how we change the world. Yeah, understand how it all links together. So yeah, opportunity to opt in on that. I appreciate the work that you've done, Andreas. I've been wrestling with you for the last 2 years to get to this point where we can collaborate like this. I think you can see now the opportunity that we have, and it's it's working for you, it's working for me, it's working for Moochie. Like let's get this pumping at scale and see what happens in 2024.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. If anyone's interested in the 25 reels in 25 days, just message me on that Real Reels Academy Instagram. And yeah, it's going to be starting on January 5th. So in a week, I believe. Yeah. Super exciting. I'm just going to dump. It's going to be 25 days of dumping every little thing I know about reels, like everything. And I think if you've grown up with technology, you'll be able to pick it up extremely, extremely fast. The editing, technical stuff, it's easy. It's button clicking. It's everything else that requires consistency and community and feedback. That's where it really matters. The button clicking is easy. Like I'm sure a 12-year-old could probably get as good as I am right now in 2 weeks, honestly. Like, yeah.
The getting that brotherhood thing going around it where there is value to others and everyone's excited about everyone else's audience growing. Like that's where this is going to get really, really interesting, where it's not you versus the algorithm. It's like, what's our total following amongst everyone who's opted into the Reels Brotherhood? Like it's hundreds of thousands already, and then it's going to be millions, tens of millions. Like that's where it becomes interesting, and then it's easy to transition platforms as well. Everyone figures out the strategy of, okay, like let's put this energy more on Twitter. It works across every platform. It works across driving to emails. It works across collaborating on emails. Reels is a great place to start. Andreas has also done really good stuff around YouTube, and we've discussed that. Like, this is only the beginning of what's possible. We all need the mailing lists, and then then it transitions into live events. I'm having good conversations with Chandler Jericho, who's run super premium live events. He's based in Florida. He wants to teach people how to run those super premium live events. Like, see how it all connects, but you need to have that momentum of audience, people believing in you, brand authority, and it's a great way to practice. Underpinning this, Andreas, like we need to get stories going every day as well. Like that can be a first step. That's even lower barrier to entry of like, hey, stories every day, man, stories every day. Like that's literally like point and shoot, have no fear. This is what I'm doing today. Like everyone can do stories every day. And it is good foundation for being, for the reels. So yeah, brick by brick, step by step.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling Justin with the story. Like, that locked in energy can come through a lot in the stories. And I think that's what people will share, like early 20s or late teens guys that are trying to get to the next level with athletics, and they wake up 4 a.m. Justin's just like, you got to be locked in. Like, people are going to share that. Like, that's the energy that, and everyone's got their own version of locked in. Whatever their personality is, like, put it through on the story, whether you're speaking or it's just a photo and you're putting text on screen. Like, put out your authentic self. That's a really good point, Keegan. The story is even more authentic than the reels. That's like you waking up and like walking to the gym. That's everything. Yeah.
Stories are where the money is, and long form content as well. And a lot less people are going to see your stories. A lot less people are going to see your long form. But the reels are what give people the invitation to that, and then they want to go deeper, and then that's where your customers come from. So your mailing list, it's going to be lower than your follower count on Instagram, but they're the people who are actually ready to buy from you. They're the people who want your help. So don't be driven by the numbers, but understand that it's an ecosystem and it's a process of deeper buy-in. So yeah, this is the potential here is huge, and we need to have these conversations more regularly. Maybe that's something we can build in. I'm not sure if it's planned to be built into the 25-day challenge to have these conversations, but the brotherhood aspect of it is super valuable as well. So yeah, let's continue to build this momentum. I think Andreas is going to stick on this now for 2024. He's going to be locked in with us on getting this concept pumping. It's going to transform Andreas's life dramatically. He's going to be traveling the world, shooting with people, and building a super elite network. It's on so many levels. The wins are here. So thank you, gentlemen, joining us for the process here this morning. Those who presented, excellent, love it, and huge journey ahead. Good to see you on as well, Ben. Everyone who jumped in, Niels, good to see you, Cody. Looking forward to the next 3 sessions. If you can join us, always fun. Bring the energy. Stay locked in, as Mitch would say. Till the next one. Thanks, brothers.